And Sandy, when you're ready, I'll go ahead and hit start broadcast.
Uh, well, you're going to introduce it, right? Or do you
Yeah,
want me to? You?
I'll go ahead and
I thought,
introduce you. So I'll do my normal introduction for you,
yeah,
um,
exactly, right.
and then again I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, welcome them to Women, Wealth, and Empowerment. And you're going to introduce Sandy, who will then introduce each of the speakers in
Exactly.
turn.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
All right. 1 second. All right. Great. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Joe.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Bacella, Director of Client Success with Chaikin Analytics, and like to welcome you to our series tonight on women, wealth, and empowerment. We have a series of presenters delivering today, so certainly it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to learn about very empowered women right now who are greatly involved in the financial environment right now. Our first presenter is Sandy Chaikin. She'll be delivering her presentation on her five-step guide to finding winning stocks. Now, Sandy, of course, is co-founder of Chaikin Analytics and began investing in 2012 as co-founder of Chaikin and built a killer portfolio that outperforms the S&P 500 and most money managers. She spotted the two best performing stocks of 2014 and bought at the right time. Both stocks rose over 125% during that year, and her portfolio continued to thrive through 2015. So now to begin, here's Sandy Chaikin.
Hey, Joe, thank you so much. And welcome to all our fearless speakers who are lined up to talk to you tonight. We want to thank John Najarian and Option Monster as a co-sponsor of this event tonight. And let me just introduce John and give you a little bit of background on John. John is co-founder of Option Monster and Trade Monster, and he's a co-lead analyst for the Inside Options Trade Ideas Alert Systems. John spent the first 29 years of his trading career trading in and around the pits of the Chicago exchanges, and he's a frequent contributor to CNBC, the Wall Street Journal, and other prominent financial media organizations. John also co-developed the patented trading algorithm, the Heat Seeker, used to detect unusual trading activity. So I know John is coming off the set of CNBC. He's going to join us when he can. So I will get started and just get out of the way a little bit of housekeeping in that Chaikin Analytics is not a registered broker-dealer or investment advisor. I'm going to skim through this. The gist of this is that we do not recommend the purchase of any stock or advise on the suitability of any trade, but what we present is strictly to be considered as research, and individuals are to make their own decisions about what they want to buy or sell. All right. I always like to start with the problem. What are the problems facing you as investors? And what are the pitfalls today? What is holding you back from investing? And what is holding you back from making profits? And what's holding you back from even getting started if you have not yet started investing in stocks? If you could let me just take a minute here and get your replies. If you could chat that into your question box, and then let me see what your replies are so that I can be sure to respond to those during the presentation. Okay, what I see is no plan, lack of a plan, lack of time. Don't know enough about the stock market. That's from Michelle. Lots of fear, Miriam and Kelly. Overwhelming, right? Information overload. Susan, no time. Lynn. Yeah, Sue, marketing corrections, so it won't move. Okay, there are still opportunities to be made, even in corrections and bearish times. Debt, that's a problem. I can't help you with that, unfortunately. Fear of choosing, lacking knowledge, volatility. Husband takes care of. Okay, Heidi, this is for you. You need to understand what your husband's doing and be part of the process. And fear. I'm hearing fear an awful lot. Okay, in this short 25-minute presentation that I'm going to be making, I will attempt to address each of these concerns. And the five-step method does address each of these concerns and provides the solution to it. So, as many of you said, we are all suffering from too much information and too little time. I say we're now in a new economy where time is the economy, and we're all time poor. I don't think there's any of you that would would feel confident saying to me, "Gee, Sandy, I've got plenty of time. I can accomplish everything I want to do in any given day." If you do have time, just put time, please, in your question box. Yeah, no one's putting time in the question box. Oh, two. All right. Maximilian and Catherine. Okay, that's good. Well, you're way ahead of the curve, you two. All right. So for the rest of us, though, we're time poor. So what's my promise? My promise to you in the next 25 minutes is to show you how to find winning stocks. And they're stocks like First Solar, Walker Dunlap, Edwards Life Sciences, American Woodmark, Activision. These are probably, for the most part, stocks you've never heard of. And that's part of the beauty of Chaikin Analytics and our five-step method, is that you can find these kind of hidden gems and not be held hostage to investing in stocks that you're familiar with. Stocks that you are familiar with, like Procter & Gamble, for instance, last year down 12%. American Express was down 28% last year. Walmart down 26%. Alibaba, big in the news, down 19%, with Yahoo, 32%. So, and Apple, everyone's favorite, down 10% last year. So, just investing in stocks that you've heard of is not necessarily a good idea. The stock market was flat, as you all know, in 2015, and it's not off to a good start. It's down about 7%. Year to date. Yet I'm going to show you how I find these winners like American Woodmark, that was up 98% last year, or ATVI, Activision, which was up 94% last year. So even in a flat market or a down market, there still are opportunities. And I'm going to show you how to do this, and do this in 15 minutes a day, which is the amount of time I spend every day on my portfolio. So what's the point of all this investing? Well, we all want to invest to make money, of course. And part of making money, there's a couple of reasons we want to make money. One is to build a nest egg for our retirement, which is critically important because we don't want to work the rest of our lives. But two is also to celebrate along the way. And I've just put a little collage together of some of the places Mark and I have been and some of the things I've bought, like the jewelry, based on the profits of stocks that I've bought and sold. The top right is of Istanbul and Bodrum, Turkey. That was on the Aegean coast of Turkey, where Mark and I went in August 2 years ago, based on just the profits of one stock alone, and that was Southwest Air. Last year we went to Vail, which is in the bottom right, and this spring we intend to go to Italy. And then I did myself a favor and bought myself some Christmas presents in December. I bought a watch and some jewelry based on some of the profits that I made in 2015. So why should you listen to me? Well, I've beaten most of the pros and the S&P 500 since I started investing in stocks in 2012. As Joe said, I found the two best growth stocks in 2014, Skyworks and Southwest Air. And last year I found also American Woodmark, which was up 98%, Walker Dunlap up 64%, and Activision up 94%. So as I say, these are within our reach of identifying and finding these winners and putting them in your portfolio. And as I say, I do spend 15 minutes a day. You're going to hear from a number of registered investment advisors today. We've got a really savvy lineup of very financially savvy women speaking to you today, many of whom are financial advisors and are top drawer financial advisors who I would highly recommend you listen to and work with. And we also, with Chaikin Analytics, work with advisors as well. And so even if you are picking your own stocks, you still may want an advisor because she can add to your whole financial planning in ways that, we at Chaikin, we just pick stocks. We just know how to pick great stocks. But a financial planner does more than that for you. They'll help you with your insurance, with your whole life goals, with your retirement planning. So I do encourage you to stay tuned and listen to what they have to say, and consider working, with an advisor as well as, with Chaikin. So John Najarian, I think most of you who are knowledgeable in the financial markets know who John is. He's on CNBC just about every day, which is, he's coming off the set tonight. As I said earlier, he did co-found Option Monster, and he's more or less a heavyweight in the financial industry. So just a little bit of background on how I got started investing and why I'm now investing in stocks. I started in 401k plans with the companies I worked for. Along came 2008, 09, and of course the whole meltdown came. And at the time, I was working with an advisor who unfortunately was not sensitive to my concerns of selling early on. My concerns were that everything was pointing down. I didn't quite see why we wouldn't sell the holdings in my portfolio, and he advised me to just hold on, that you don't need to sell, they'll all come back. 40% later, in the hole, I closed the account and put the money in my own investment portfolio investment account at Vanguard. I opened a Vanguard account, put it in the S&P 500 until I could figure out what to do with that. But that was also a turning point to me, and it was kind of an action in the crossing the road of me resolving to take control of my financial future. And even if I do work with a financial advisor in the future, which is very likely to help me with other aspects of my financial planning, I do always want to have some type of engagement and control over what I'm doing. And I think that is good advice for any of us. So what I'm going to show you today is what we call the Financial Freedom Fast Track. And this is the Chaikin Analytics platform, which I'm going to be demonstrating today with what I'm showing you. So there's basically 5 keys to our methodology, and I'm going to go through each one. And as I say, I've got to do this quite quickly, to fit this in the 30-minute time slot. But the centerpiece of our methodology is the Chaikin Power Gauge rating. This is a rating that looks at the outlook of a stock 3 to 6 months out. So think of it as a GPS for stocks. And right here you see a very bullish rating, which looks pretty simple, right? But it's far from simple under the hood. There are actually 20 factors that make up this model. And this model was created by my husband, Mark Chaikin, after a 40-some-year career on Wall Street. What happened after that 2009 meltdown is Mark and I got together about that time, and he could see from my experience and my experience moving into a self-managed account at Vanguard that I didn't have the tools to make my own decisions, and I didn't have the knowledge to make my own decisions. Yet, I'd become fearful of Wall Street and felt the need to manage this myself and at least educate myself on this. So he said, well, you guys don't know what you're doing, but there's millions of you that have literally taken billions out of traditional brokerage firms and are now managing this money yourself. I said, that is true. So he said, well, I'm going to help you. I'm going to create Chaikin Analytics, and you're going to help me market this because I have a marketing background. And it's going to be to give individuals like you, Sandy, the tools they need to identify winning stocks to find and losing stocks to avoid before these big price moves. And it's going to be based on the financial information and factors that institutions look at every day. So in other words, he's giving us the same view that the pros look at. So from his experience, these are the 20 factors that professionals look at every day when they are evaluating a stock. If I were to look these up, 20 different factors on every stock that I was interested in, first of all, I wouldn't know where to go to find it, and I wouldn't know what it all meant. But what the Power Gauge rating does is it's a whole algorithm. It took Mark several years to create this, but it's an algorithm that weights all these factors, bundles them all into an algorithm, and spits out a rating based on a very bullish or a very bearish outlook of the stock's potential over the next 3 to 6 months. So other than those 20 factors. You can drill down and get a rating on each of those factors, but I tend to look at just the overall rating and those three that I outlined in red. This speaks to our whole time poor. So all but Maximilian and I think it was Stephanie. Nobody else on the webinar tonight, on the presentation tonight, feels they have enough time in the day. Cheryl, though, said that she's an individual investor. There's not enough time in my day to do the work Chaikin puts before me in minutes, and I am wowed. And yes, you can quote me. So, we do get a lot of testimonials and speaking to, the time poor aspect of our lives today. So if you're not convinced from what I'm saying about the power gauge rating and the reliability of it, you can certainly go to our website. There's all sorts of back testing and charts and real-time testing results on there that shows how reliable it is. But perhaps the one of the strongest proof points is the NASDAQ relationship that we've formed, in that NASDAQ asked us to create 3 indexes based on the power gauge rating. So what they asked us to do was to take these 3 indexes of theirs, overlay our Chaikin power gauge rating, weed out the neutral and bearish rated stocks, so you only are left with the bullish stocks, and put those into an index. So charting that, this is pretty clear that the NASDAQ Chaikin indexes have outperformed by huge margin. The results pretty much speak for themselves, that the power gauge is something we can rely on. We're also quoted and seen on most of the major media across the country. Okay, so are you all with me so far? Is this all making sense, I hope? Okay, so let's move on to our number 2, playing offense. How do you find a classic bull? Well, we call a classic bull a stock like American Woodmark that you see here. It has to have a power gauge rating that's bullish. And this is this bullish rating across the bottom. This is a stock chart from Chaikin Analytics. We have a stock chart on any of 5,000 charts. So this is showing you the full year green, pretty much bullish power gauge rating. This is relative strength, which also needs to be strong for it to be considered a classic bull. This is relative price. This is price relative to the S&P 500. If you're going to buy a stock, you want it to outperform the S&P 500. Otherwise, you might as well just go with an index fund. And this is Chaikin money flow, which also needs to be strong in order for this to be a good candidate as a classic bull. And this is incredibly important, this Chaikin money flow. This is an indicator Mark created 35 years ago for Wall Street so that they could monitor buying activity by the pros. And why is that important? Well, if professionals are buying like they are here, where you see this big blotch, I call it a green mountain. When you see these green mountains, this is all good. This means the stock is likely to rise. However, when they're selling, the prices tend to flatten out or actually can go down. So having a clear read on what the institutions do is really important because they move the markets. They're trading in big enough blocks, unlike you and I, that they could actually move prices. So let's look at an example today. Okay, American Woodmark, by the way, was up 98% last year. It's not doing as well this year. It's up 15%. So I wouldn't call it a classic bull right now. But First Solar was up 44% last year, and they're up again this year as well. So let's look at First Solar. I have this arrow here where I bought this in November. So why did I buy it? Okay, let's just look really carefully at this chart and use this as an example. Power gauge rating turned bullish from neutral in October. Relative strength turned strong about the same time. And here there's a big chunk of money coming into it. And you can see what happens when these things line up. This is what we call is a classic bull. And the price takes off. So I put this on my watch list. I was watching it. I keep 2 lists. One list of stocks that I own, which is typically 8 or 10, and another is a watch list of 20 or so stocks that I'm watching. And I flip through these every day. And that's actually how I do this in 15 minutes a day. So I had this on my watch list and I bought it down here at 50, what was it, 54. It went all the way up to 72. It's now pulled back to 62. And we use this overbought, oversold indicator here to help identify timing. You want to sell a stock when it's up here at the top. As you can see, it correlates to the peaks. And if you're buying, you want to buy it when it's down here because inevitably stocks do pull back to some degree. And this helps you identify that. So the stock is pulled back now. We triggered an oversold buy. This is our step 5, is to use our signals, these signals that overlay and show these little green triangles, which are telling you this is a good time to get into this stock. And so I bought more today. I'm not afraid if a stock is doing really well to double up. Now, mind you, this is in, excuse me, a market where, you know, the S&P is down 7% this year. And this stock is up. Excuse me, I am fighting this cold that will not leave me alone. So Goldman actually came out a couple of days ago with a target of 100. So those of you that are interested in buying stocks, I would say put this on your list. This is pulling back to a great buying opportunity, in my opinion. And everything is lining up as a classic bull. Solar energy also is, obviously a direction our country is trying to move in, and there are tax advantages, and First Solar is kind of their first in class in terms of the industry. So, that's a great opportunity that's going on right now. Activision, this is another stock. I bought this stock back in 2015. It went up 94% last year. It's down a little today. It's about 10% down as of now. But I bought this stock, back here in November, and that was at around 31 or so. And I bought it on this buy signal here. Again, everything was lining up. I mean, I hope, the more you look at these charts, the more your eye will get used to them, and the easier it will be for you to identify these patterns yourself. But when all these things start lining up, you can see how the price then starts taking off. And of course, that's what you want. You want to buy a stock that's in an upward trend, not one in a downward trend. And this really, in red and green, gives you a clear indication, as well as these little triangles, which are the buy signals. So I'm holding on to this stock. It's still bullish today. So, here's a stock chart that was as recent as, I think I pulled this yesterday or the day before. So this is not suffering, in this volatile market right now. So yes, volatility can be a concern, but if you've got the right methodology and the right tools supporting your decisions, you can make really good, sound decisions. All right, so I'm going to quickly move on to the classic bears, which is what to avoid. And again, this is the reverse. You want to avoid stocks like Kinder Morgan, oil and gas, energy. They've all been doing horribly this year. This goes way back to May when everything turned. We call this a personality change here. So you've got a persistent pattern of a bearish power gauge reading, which means we're saying this stock is likely to underperform the market the next 3 to 6 months. Relative strength is negative. It's underperforming the S&P 500, and you've got institutions selling. And if that's not enough, you've got a sell signal. So you had a sell signal up here at like 40, and the stock is down, to 13. So volatility can be a problem. We all know that. It can be a problem if you're not seeing what I'm seeing. If you're using a system like Chaikin and you can see these change of events like what happened here in mid-May, you would have taken action and sold this with that sell signal. And you would have been out at 40 and not written it down painfully to 13. So particularly today, when there is a preponderance of bearish versus bullish stocks, it's particularly important to know when to get out of these stocks. Yelp has had a hard time for over a year. I mean, this chart kind of tells it all. You got everything red, plus you've got a million sell signals telling you to get out. I highlighted this in July, this price in July at, I think it was around 34 or something. The reason being, we do put out weekly and daily insights. We call them market insights. And we do have specific recommendations in there of stocks that are bullish or bearish. And Yelp was featured, as a very bearish stock, and with the thought of putting in an options trade on it. And that's exactly what Mike T did in his first couple of weeks as a subscriber, and he made $17,000 on the option heading down. I don't have time to go over this today, but Joe, who's our options guy, among other things, gives presentations twice a week on how to trade options with Chaikin. And we do have what we call options overlay, options play. It's an overlay onto the Chaikin system, which helps you identify options and opportunities, when to sell and when to buy. Okay, so how do I know when to sell? Well, certainly if the power gauge turns neutral and another indicator turns negative, like money flow or relative strength, then I start really looking at it carefully. If I get a sell signal, that's a pretty definitive, line in the sand to say, hey, time to leave the party. Or if the price drops before that orange line, which is a long-term trend line, it's a 200-day average. And let me just show you on a chart here. This is the 200-day average here line, this orange line. And if the stock drops below it, that can be a very good time for you to say, hey, I think it's time to leave. So this is Apple, everyone's favorite stock. You can see where it all turned at 125 or so. It closed today under 100. So, this can save you a lot of pain. Industry groups, you want to have what we call the wind at your back. You want to buy stocks that are not only strong stocks, but they're in strong industry groups, and we actually rate those for you. But we have an easier system now with a screener, and I apologize for going through this so quickly. I'm just going to give you a taste of it in the time frame here. But our stock screener, you can basically plug in the factors that you want. In other words, you can say, just show me stocks that are in strong industry groups, that have a strong power gauge rating, that have strong money flow, that have a strong relative strength. And it'll filter down. This is taking the Russell 3000. You start out with a universe of almost 2,500 stocks, and you're down to now 13. And it does this in seconds. So, when you say, how do I find these stocks? This is a really easy way to find them. And that screener was from a few weeks ago. I just took one example because that's all we have time to do. But this is one of the examples, that back here, end of December, that was where the screener first found this stock. And so had you bought this, that would have been a nice buy. And everything looks green. So the last piece of our methodology is to use those signals, and I have highlighted them along the way. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on the signals other than to just quickly say, how do I find them? Well, you can do an overlay on your list, on your watch list, or on your stock list, or on the S&P 500, or on any list, and it'll show you which signals have triggered both positive, negative, as well as any other important things that can affect the change of a stock's price. For instance, if a power gauge is turned bullish from neutral, it'll tell me that. So I don't have to go digging. It pushes it right to the front. So very quickly, these are the 5 keys to a successful investing strategy. Use a proven methodology, play offense, identify the bears, get them out of your portfolio, use the industry group strength to keep the odds in your favor, and also let the signals guide you both in selling and buying. So hopefully this has given you a taste of how you can gain the confidence and find winning stocks like I do in 15 minutes a day and enjoy the fruits of your labors. We get a lot of testimonials, and Joe gets them every day. But I love this one because Rex had one trade on Amazon that covered 2 months in Hawaii. I mean, I was very pleased with 2 weeks in Turkey last year, based on Southwest Air. But Rex is awesome. 2 months in Hawaii is awesome. And this fairly new subscriber also just is thrilled with the options in the screener editions. These are huge additions that we've added to the platform at no additional price to our subscribers. So we want you to be our next success story. And in order to do that, we're going to give you a free trial of our Chaikin Analytics and the Financial Freedom Fast Track. So in a nutshell, the system works. It'll give you confidence, easy to understand, saves a lot of time, done for you system, and it gives you information once available only to the Wall Street pros. It's packed with value. If you were to break these components apart, including coaching, and I can't put enough emphasis on coaching because you're all time starved except for two of you. So you're saying, well, how am I going to learn this? Well, we walk you through. Joe is actually our coach, and he will get you in a session immediately as soon as tomorrow and walk you through the system and how to use it, and that's ongoing. So we've already enrolled you free for 10 days. No cost, no credit card, no obligation. And you'll be getting an email from us tonight, actually, with instructions on how to reserve your first coaching program, your first coaching training session, rather. That can be as early as tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Okay, so, boy, that was a marathon. But I think I did it, and now we are ready to move on to Peggy. So, Joe, while you're getting Peggy's presentation up, let me just give you all a brief overview of Peggy. Peggy is known as the Financial Whisperer. She's a financial coach helping women eliminate their debt and shame by detangling emotion from money. And many of you stated that emotion was a big concern of yours. Peggy became an expert after experiencing her own financial cliff. She's written a book, It's Never About the Money, Even When It Is, which you can get on Amazon. Okay, so Peggy, let me turn this over to you.
Hey, Peggy, if you're available right now, we just gave you the ability to show your screen.
Okay. And are we ready?
All right.
Yep.
Yep, we have you now. Full screen,
Okay.
And you're ready to go.
Great. First of all, Sandy, thank you so much for inviting me to participate with this. You gave me a great radio show not long ago, and I look forward to spending time with you, and this was a great opportunity for us to talk again. We just need to get some technical things. So is this advancing working? Yeah. Okay, so a little bit about me. I had 22 jobs and 4 businesses by the time I was 58 years old. I could not find myself. One of the businesses I had that was critical or a catalyst for me to start my coaching business for financial awareness, I had been a mortgage broker. And so often, I did bankruptcy buyouts, and so often I would say to my clients, so how did you end up in bankruptcy? And all the stories I heard, I was like, oh God, that's terrible, thank God it didn't happen to me. But in fact, I had my own secrets about money, and I was just staying just ahead of everyone else, so to speak. But finally, when I had my own personal financial cliff in when I was 57, I could not stay where I was. I was at the intersection of denial and reality. I was getting divorced. My husband and I were moving out of a beach house here in California we should never have had to begin with. My favorite dog was dying, and our debt was extraordinary. We had Mercedes. I mean, we were living the life, the high life, and meanwhile it's all standing on water. But when I had to face coming out of the shadows and admit how much shame I had about money and how much shame I had about other things, that is when it was a turning point for me, because I felt I didn't have a choice. What I did is I hired a career coach, because with such a background and a degree in fine arts from New York University, I'm like, my sister used to tease me. She'd say, you know what, you move around so much. I'm going to write you down in pencil in my book, because, you know, every other year you're doing something else. It was funny, but it was also sad. So I wrote 3 books, two of which were published but never distributed. My third book is It's Never About the Money, Even When It Is, How to Untangle Your Money from Your Finances, and it's on Amazon. And getting that done was a huge accomplishment. What we're going to do tonight is that we're going to talk about really the gap that exists between women like yourselves and supporting, as you can see, the statistic of 72% of women don't feel confident about selecting financial investments on their own. What we're going to do today, we're going to talk about where you are and who you are, why you hold back, and action steps to move forward. Now, are you a yo-yo spender? Right? So it's not unusual for someone to come to me who makes a significant amount of money. Let's say they make over $300,000 or $400,000 a year, but meanwhile they spend everything they make. So that every month what they're doing is they're basically paying off their credit cards and starting all over again, never having the money for investments, never having money for their kind of rainy day. The next thing we're going to look at is, do you allow, and this is so typical of women, and I was guilty of it also, of allowing my husband to make all the decisions. And I never questioned him. But do you question your husband at all? Do you ever question his judgment? Do you assume everything is okay, and that if it wasn't, that he would tell you? Then we come down to how you feel about asking for help. This was a big issue for me. I had so much shame about asking for anything that I just didn't do it. It's amazing that I had 2 businesses that were successful and 2 were not, but it's shocking how much you can learn on your own without asking people. But that's a reality, and we shouldn't be ashamed. We shouldn't be embarrassed. You know, my question always is, does the thought of choosing an advisor paralyze you? Does talking about money trigger feelings of shame for you? Do you assume that somehow people are born knowing how to handle money? Or do you feel stupid, as I did, when it would arise in conversation? That's where I would get up from the table and go into the kitchen for whatever. So let's look at this slide. This is about basically what it all comes from. It comes from fear. And if you look at the behaviors of all these women, it's always, if you drill down deep enough, it's going to be about fear. The shopper is avoiding the connection between her spending and her fears by choosing to be unconscious and avoid talking about the proverbial elephant in the living room. Well, that will certainly be well with me. That fear, for the most part, comes from a lack of trust. And in our third section, we're going to talk about how to build trust with yourself so that you can venture into an area that traditionally has been nerve-wracking for you, ergo you avoid it, so you can now get a handle on it. Because at the end of the day, you have to believe that having a financial strategy is important to you. Because if it isn't, then it isn't. But there's not one woman out there that can slide through this. Every woman needs to have a plan, not just delegating it to their husband or to their financial advisor. They have to be engaged with the process. Okay? Now, as I mentioned a minute ago about trust, and I want to do a sidebar here. Trust is a tricky issue, and that's where everything comes from when our world feels a little bit lopsided. And there are different kinds of trust. So let's split some hairs, because in this understanding, you're going to have some relief and feel less pressure. There's trust that your best friend will show up at the hospital if you break a leg. You might not be willing to loan her money, but she's loyal, but she never repays you, right? You can tell her anything. As Brene Brown says, the one you call to move the body. Another type of trust is your husband is monogamous, but he's an overspender and commits to taking care of certain things and rarely follows through. The really touchy topic for a lot of women is their mothers. Your mother would show up at an emergency. She would return any borrowed monies, but you can't tell her everything. She's way too judgmental. This is about loving somebody and not trusting them, which seem to be two opposite energies, and frankly they are. But you can hold both. The key for people is to understand it so that they don't end up doing things out of guilt. It comes from someplace else. How many people do I talk to that have this reaction when they feel guilty? They don't think, they just do, and then they regret it later. Okay? Learning to trust really starts at childbirth. If you experienced inconsistencies between your mom and her behaviors, that's the groundwork for confusion. Okay? So we don't have that much time together, so I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but I'm going to tell you a familiar story to quickly suggest how you can see who you are and move forward with these subconscious messages. Okay, boy, we love these, don't we? Smart women aren't sexy, or the reverse, sexy women aren't smart. Girls aren't good at math and science. Who invented that? Women don't belong in business. Well, then everyone on this phone call should hang up immediately. Women can't be trusted with money. Maybe that's what someone feels about you. And that girls shouldn't take risks. What are you, crazy? We have to start skateboarding early in life, not late in life. And the favorite one is be quiet. You heard that, I'm sure, growing up. A lot of kids get just marginalized. It's the classic be seen and not heard. That doesn't help build our self-esteem. It doesn't reinforce a young girl's sense of competence. Quite the opposite. Just to digress for a minute, this past Sunday, and you've heard all about this, about the inequities of the pay scale, but here it was in the New York Times. It was about women who collaborate as researchers, writers, co-authors do not get the credit. The boys do, not the girls, right? Because that's traditional in the academic world. In order for women to get credit, they literally have to put on it, and I'm quoting, this paper is intentionally solo authored. Wow, not good. One of the keys that makes someone trust themselves and respect themselves is their sense of competence. Now, all of you on the phone are competent, right? You are successful in your businesses. If you're not, you're trying to get there. You are career-oriented, right? So you need to learn to tap into parts of your lives that are usually not that accessible. Why? Because you're fearful of it. So you're going to hold back. But some of the things we can do is then look backwards, which we're going to do in the next sequence of slides, is where does this come from? One woman had no problem, like Sandy, she has no problem getting involved with finances, and another woman is like, she's getting wobbly kneed. I have this funny experience years ago when I took up golf. I was telling my golf coach was telling me is that she had so many clients that were tigers in the boardroom, but lambs on the golf course. We have to close that gap, right? In short, our behaviors reveal everything about ourselves to the observant eye. So at this point, I want to ask, does anyone have any questions before we go on to the next sequence? No? Okay, good. All right, so next we're going to talk about where does it come from. This is your child. Actually, this is your child's brain. This is your brain when you were 5 years old, 6 years old, right? Neuroscience tells us that during the first 6 years of our lives, our brains take in mountains of raw, sensory, tactile, emotional, and social information from the world around us. Unfortunately, our child's brains don't really develop the cognitive mental processes until later on, when we start to understand concepts, problem solving, judging, thinking, which starts really about the age of 7. Some of the subtle and not so subtle messages we pick up along the way include, as we saw at the earlier slide, girls are not good at math, boys should be in charge, girls shouldn't take risks. I speak for this firsthand. I'm youngest born. I have an older brother and sister. Birth order is really important because what birth order usually reveals is how the power in a family is distributed. Now, my brother is 2 years older, and he had a real talent for mechanical drawing. And yes, I followed him around a lot, and I was a wannabe for sure, but I also had the skill. Not as profound as he did, but I did. My mother kept discouraging me. She kept saying to me, don't compete with your brother. And I'm like, what? But I'd love to do, no, don't do that. Go do something else. So it's no wonder I ended up in the food business for most of my life. But later on, when I was married to my first husband, she did the same thing to me. I invited them for dinner. By that time, I was a competent cook. I mean, meanwhile, we didn't have shelves in the bathroom. We were newlyweds. And she walks in, and I have a power drill in my hand, and I'm trying to, whoops, I'm sorry about that slide, and I'm trying to put up shelving. My mother comes in, and she's shocked, and she goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm putting shelving up. And she says, no, don't do that. I said, why not? She says, no, it's not good. My husband's name is Robert. It's not good for Robert. I said, not good in what way? She said, it's going to emasculate him. I said, Mother, he's an attorney. I don't think it matters to him, and frankly, he always calls someone to change a light bulb. I think he'll be fine with this. No, Peggy, you shouldn't do it. It's really a bad way to start your marriage. So there my mother, she graduated from Hunter College. She had her own business. From a woman who was fairly empowered, that she's telling me to take a step back. She was a walking contradiction herself. She wasn't conscious of what she was messaging to me. However, that would show up later in my adult life. Who else would have 22 jobs, right? How nomadic was I, right? So let's move on to our parents, especially our mothers, have the greatest impact on us. And unless our parents work against the norm and push us to experiment, building our internal sense of competence, we will drift and lose our compass, and worse, make decisions based upon false information. So in fact, this ties back to trusting ourselves, because when you really know yourself and really trust yourself, you see it, the problem, a mile away. And you don't have to second guess it. You know what it is, you feel that it's dangerous, and you can pull back or move forward. You know that kids, it's like monkey see, monkey do. Kids copy everything that the mother does. Even boys walk around in shoes and lipstick and whatever when they're little boys because they don't know. Even in spite of the fact that boys and girls are built exactly emotionally the same, we obviously are taught different messages and take two different roads. But so what happens when you have a mother that's too self-absorbed or not available emotionally, the girls suffer more than the boys. We're going to work on now is steps to move forward. Okay? In the first set of slides, I talked about identifying your current day behaviors, basically who are you. In the second set of slides I addressed your history and where your money messages come from. This last set of slides, I'm going to talk about shifting and how to embrace your fears, but keep moving forward. Fear is not a stop sign. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was discussing with her the PowerPoint that I was putting together, and she said to me, if I didn't know any better, I would think this was all a metaphor for the Wizard of Oz. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, first you got the lion, right? He lacks courage. Then you have the Tin Man, who lacks a brain, and then you've got the scarecrow who lacks a heart. So really, those are three stages that we're actually talking about. And if you know, here they go off the yellow brick road because they believe there's power out there. There's someone out there to fix their problems. Not so, as we're going to see in a minute. But that's what people do. They keep pushing everything into the future and just, as I did, and go, oh, don't worry, it'll be taken care of, don't worry, don't worry. Really? I don't think so. So now they come up closer and closer to the castle, and appearances can be deceptive. And yes, Sandy, you earned that money to buy the watch. Great. But what happens if someone bought the watch because of the prestige, because of the image it would give off, and they really don't support it with money they've earned? Then there's a disconnect. So perceptions are everything. But as we see in this next slide, you open it up, well, wait a second. That's not the wizard. That's a little girl. So again, if we go back to where the stuff comes from, the assumptions that are false they come from your childhood. The wizard is actually your inner 5-year-old. It's your subconscious CFO trying to manage the levers of your financial power. That's how people make poor financial decisions. It is highly emotional, but it's okay that it be emotional. What's not okay is someone doesn't process it properly, and they go ahead and they make a decision that turns around and hurts them. Okay? But what they come to realize, the three characters in The Wizard of Oz, is they learn they have it inside of themselves, as you do too. You have the ability. You have, all you need is the tools and maybe a crowbar to get you moving. But you can embrace whatever the challenge is ahead of you. You just have to make a decision to do it. That's my marketing gal. We went out, that's LA. We went out one day for a photo session, and she's wearing that red cape. I love that red cape. Anyway, so here we are at the piece of what do we do next, really. Every one of you today, as I said earlier, has a heart, a brain, and courage. It's not your fault what happened. You were innocent. How in the world can a 5-year-old be responsible for the environment around her, be responsible for adults' behaviors? She can't be. But meanwhile, she's imprinted it, and it's going to show up later in her life, as I've already given you a couple of examples. Now that you have the consciousness of where the fear comes from and possess cognitive skills, you have the power of choice. Everything in your life, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about money, weight, how much salary you get, how you manage your dogs, your kids, your husband, your closet, your medicine cabinet, it doesn't matter. It all comes together, and it's all really rooted. Let me show you this slide first. This is your life, and you've seen tons of these wheels. The center is your self-esteem. Let me just drink some water here. Hold on a second. If your self-esteem is cracked, this wheel will wobble. Every place it's going to go, it's going to be shaky. So we have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure I get this all in for you. So that's a picture of who you are. If you want to fix a problem, we're going to go back to this slide. I call it the Holy Grail because this works 100% of the time. If you want to get something accomplished, you have to be committed to it. And because you're going to an area that's really full of thorns and scary stuff, you've got to take it in very small dosage. But the commitment you're going to make on the left will then morph into respect for yourself, which then morphs into trusting yourself, which of course is about loving yourself and feeling deserving, right? So here you've got your self-commitment. Here's an exercise. So maybe get a pen and paper, and let me give you some suggestions. What you want to be able to do is first acknowledge the emotional piece that we discussed in the first set of slides. You can't abandon that. You will already, in some respects, are abandoned already. You don't want to recreate it. Number two, You need to identify exactly what the feeling is that you're having, because this is all about how you feel. Just because you feel it doesn't mean you go do it, which you have been doing. It's now you're going to feel it, but you're going to process it and take your time and then make a decision that makes sense. Next, Brad Yates. Brad Yates teaches tapping. All of what you're going to be doing is going to trigger off a lot of anxiety. How do you manage that during the day or at any time? Tapping is a process that you literally work through tapping your fingertips around parts of your body to release the anxiety. It's very, very soothing. You have to learn to be in the moment. That is really critical. Journaling. Journaling really, you get to talk to yourself. Make sure you hide the journal in your mattress so no one finds it. But it's really, no one is listening, but it gives you a chance to really share how you feel. Next, you want to be able to share how you feel with someone you trust. Don't go back to a friend or your mom who's going to criticize you to share the stuff that you feel uncomfortable about. Go find people you can trust. Now, here is the key. See this slide, the respectometer? This is how you're going to keep yourself on track. In the center, if the arrow were there, that's the moment that matters. You're walking down the street, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Ben & Jerry's is on your side. Whole Foods is across the street. You've committed yourself to lose 10 pounds. Do you buy an apple or an ice cream? The respectometer is going to keep you on track because you're going to gain respect if you keep yourself commitments. You're going to lose respect if you go to Ben & Jerry's. Okay? Let's talk about how to really pull together your stock information. Okay? Learning to invest. What does that really mean? It really means about looking at a company clearly. I was getting my car washed the other day, found this book on the 100 stocks to watch for 2016, came across McCormick Spices. Seemed to have a really good track record. So I choose to pick certain stocks. I'm not putting a dime down to anything yet until I understand what I need to understand about how a stock is solid, how it performs, right? How do I hire a good advisor? Heck, how do I do that? I've got to research what it means to be a good advisor, what kind of information they should be giving me constantly. What do I need to feel comfortable? Ask questions. Never tire of it. Remember, it's your money. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You are on a learning curve, right? Take your small failures as learning experiences, right? One last thing is that when you are comfortable with being yourself, you will in fact make much better decisions. So I think I'm almost at the end here. Are there some more questions or any questions that people have? Otherwise, I think I'm almost done.
Peggy, there's one comment. Peggy, it's Sandy. There's one comment from Susan. Susan said she was lucky that her parents, out of 4 girls, no boys, trusted her to start working with their estate planning. This was a pivotal point in my life in terms of being more confident in planning and money. I have the fear of investing, but not the fear of getting help. So that's from Susan.
Right. So Susan, if you don't have the fear of getting help, then you have to answer for yourself, why are you holding back asking questions? Why are you what's getting in your way? Right? It's got to be something. So as soon as you can identify it, then you can tackle it. So every time we don't know something, we don't have control. The key is to know what it is that you don't know. Having control is everything. Who needs it? How do you get it? Right? That is the basis for everything. It's for our sense of empowerment. So if you want to, what I'm offering everyone is, first of all, my book for free, everyone that's on this call, and second, a 30-minute free consultation with me, which is here on the last screen. Here's my website, thefinancialwhisperer.com, but I will be giving you 30 minutes, and Susan, I'd love you to call me, and we can talk directly about it. I think I'm done, Sandy, but thank you so much for this opportunity.
Peggy, that's awesome, and you're right on time, 7 o'clock. Just so the audience knows, all of these incredibly savvy women have been interviewed by me on my podcast, Financially Fearless. And I also also have them up with links to their website and their contact information on the resource page of my webpage. So if you go to sandychaikin.com and go to resources, you'll find Peggy and everybody else's bio as well as their links to their website. So, and also we'll send you an email tonight with all that information in it. So Peggy, that was fabulous. You're awesome. Confidence, fear. I mean, it's just so interesting how this all ties in together. And I will have to endorse the whole confidence thing. I always say that confidence is really at the root of investing, because if you don't have the confidence in yourself to make financial decisions, you're not going to make good decisions, or you're not going to make decisions at all. You're just not going to participate. So, understanding that confidence and fear and where that comes from is just so helpful. Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to Tina Powell. So Tina is CEO of She Capital, the first online automated investment and educational platform created for women. After a life-changing event, Tina shifted her career to finance. She now dedicates her life to helping women be financially fearless. Tina is a Series 65 registered as an investment advisor. So Tina, let me turn the platform over to you.
Hey Tina, any luck with the audio? We can see your screen right now. All right, bear with us for a few moments, folks. We just got to get Tina's audio sorted out. Bear with us for a minute. Let's see. Tina, if you're chatting in, we're not quite able to hear you yet. We're going to go ahead and just get this taken care of for you right now. All right, Tina, go ahead. It looks like we have your connection now.
Okay, wonderful.
Great.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Sandy. I enjoyed your presentation as well as Peggy's. I'm so excited to be here with our financially fearless audience. But before I begin, I just want to give a shout out to tonight's sponsors, Chaikin Analytics and Option Monster, for all of their support. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Tonight's event is one of a kind, and you're in for a real treat. I hope that you'll use the hashtag Fearless7 and mention us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at She Capital. You can also engage with us on social media after the broadcast. So, are you ready? Let's do this. It's important to note that everything in this presentation tonight is intended to be educational in nature, and hopefully it will assist you in reaching your financial goals. However, keep in mind that it is general in nature and not specific to any one particular circumstance. So nothing we say here today can replace real investment advice that's rendered after a thorough review of your financial situation. So that's me right there. I'll go into the story in just a minute. But one of my favorite quotes in finance is from the billionaire investor Warren Buffett. And Buffett said, invest in as much of yourself as you can, and you are your biggest asset by far. And I've been following Buffett's advice throughout my career in finance. It's worked for me, and I believe that it can work for you too. So men, women, young and old, I use this quote to emphasize the point that being financially fearless is not what's in your bank account, but rather what's going on with you and your daily habits. And I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot of time, it's effort. It's perpetual and ongoing life learning for the rest of your life. It took me 49 years to get to this podium here and to help ring in the bell for the New York Stock Exchange on Friday, August 28th, after we launched She Capital. Many years of schooling and education and life experience and hardships too. But you know what? It was worth every penny. So that's me. I'm not only the founder of CEO of She Capital. We are the first automated investment platform for women. But, you know, I started my career with Beacon Wealth Management, where I'm currently a partner, and we started an initiative with women. And that's how we launched She Capital. Beacon also too manages 250 million of assets under management. We have 140 clients. So, you know, I use that life experience to do what I do right now. Education and lifelong learning are also main themes in my life, and they should be for you too if you want to be a financially fearless woman. And if you're in the city on Tuesday nights, you can find me at NYU, where I teach executive leadership in the graduate program to financially fearless students. And I have a master's, a bachelor's, a Series 65 securities license, and oh yeah, a black belt. Took me 10 years to earn that. But on the financially fearless front, you know, I've helped raise two very successful millennial investors. I have a son and daughter who are both in the market, and they have had a lifetime of learning how to be financially fearless. So they won't be on tonight's broadcast, I know. But you know what? On the personal side, I've also had to weather a few storms of my own, my father's stroke and a divorce. So I share that with you to provide some of the additional context to tonight's talk. And it was, again, one of the reasons that I started She Capital. So how many of you are involved in making financial decisions? Raise your hand. So Ameriprise did a Women and Financial Power study in June of 2014. And what the data uncovered was this. Almost every American woman surveyed is influencing decisions about their household finances. And what are we talking about? Well, things like saving for retirement and managing budgets and making insurance investment decisions. Also, the study revealed this. As women are nearing retirement, most are engaged and confident in their financial decisions. So, you know, clearly I think that this is great news for women, but, and there's always a but, the reasons for these decisions differ amongst the generations of women. And I want to point out a few of those reasons why.
Tina, can I just tell you what the replies were to your question?
Oh, sure.
Of who make financial decisions? You only got one reply, and that's from Kelly, saying it's just me, so I make all the decisions.
All right, Kelly, thanks very much for chiming in. So Kelly, this is dedicated to you. So we have, if we look at women, I'm going to divide women right now into three groups. And everyone, I'm sure that most people are familiar with the generational schematic here, but let's go over it. So if we look at baby boomer females, and that's if you're 52 to 71 years of age, their focus is having enough money for retirement and preparing for unexpected events. And about 91% of these women say that they know that it's their responsibility to understand their financial situation, and nearly half play a joint role in making long-term decisions. So when we look at Gen X females like me, many are going through life's challenges. Some of these are unexpected. The situation with my dad, unexpected. The divorce, unexpected. But let's also, a lot of women my age are going through, they're in the sandwich generation and they're caring for their parents. 66% of caregivers are females, and the average age is 49. And she's usually married and unemployed. If we switch lenses here and look at women who are 21 to 41 years of age, they are in a different mindset altogether. So these women are in the accumulation phase, and they're pretty comfortable about their finances, and this statistic is fantastic. 62% of these women say that one or both parents spent time teaching them about finances and financial decisions growing up. And if we look at that, if we compare to the generations of boomers, only 43% of generations had had discussion with their parents. So clearly the conversations are changing to benefit women. And I ask, which one are you? Kelly, I'm not sure which one you are. I can't see the response. I don't know, Sandy, if you can see that. But, you know, depending where you are in each phase, you're going to be thinking about money and your decisions a little bit different.
And you've got a few more. Do you want me to read the few more responses, Tina?
Oh, that would be great. Yes, please.
Okay, so Kelly said she makes the decisions. Sherry said she makes the decisions in our family also. Miriam said she's divorced and makes her own decisions clumsily. We're going to help you with that tonight, Miriam. Patricia says, I am there. And Carolyn says she's a millennial. Catherine's a Gen X. Patricia, I would agree, as a woman taking care of my parents. Wait a minute, scrolling up. People are adding their comments. Hold on one sec. As a woman taking care of parents is the middle group. Major loss and illness personally.
Yeah.
Cheryl's a baby boomer. No guidance regarding finance from parents growing up.
Oh, interesting.
She shares decisions with her husband, but directly manages most of our retirement funds. I think she means, but he manages most. Jerica is a millennial. She makes all the decisions for my single household. My parents are boomers, and they were terrible with money. Oh, poo. Okay.
Well, you know what I do want to say? Can I say that I had my father was terrible with money, and my mother was an ace with money. And so sometimes having the bad is just as important as having a good, because you know what you don't want to be, and you don't know what you want to how you don't want to end up in life. And it is really it can inspire you and really jumpstart your foray into into financial services and understanding and education. So thank you, Kelly, Sherry, Miriam, and Cheryl. I'm glad that you all chimed in. I think the takeaway here is that regardless of what bucket you're going to fall in, we need to recognize the fact that as women, we are going to go through some planned and unexpected life events. And one of these days, there's going to be a fork in the road, and there's trade-offs to each decision that you're going to be making about family, career, and money. So we all have a finite amount of time and energy. It's one of the reasons why I think investing makes sense, because you want to work smarter, not harder, and let some of your money do the heavy lifting. So let's talk a little bit about what that fearless woman is and who she is. Well, she recognizes the things that we just talked about, and that making good decisions is the key at all stages of her life. And so a financially fearless woman, she takes ownership of her responsibilities and her decision. Matters not if you're married or if you have a spouse or a significant other, or even if you're not, you can't play the blame game when things don't go your way. You can't blame your husband, you can't blame your spouse, you can't blame your children, your mother, okay? The financially fearless woman knows where she's going, and she knows how to get there. So it may surprise you to learn that the financially fearless woman isn't doing anything magical, right? We looked at Sandy's presentation. We also heard from Peggy. It's not anything magical. I've been working with wealthy female clients who lead very average lives. It's not anything sexy like the Kardashians, but it's smart. They do the same things and repeat them day in and day out. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of those things are. First, financially fearless means taking ownership and being informed. When I say that, I mean the following. Are you monitoring your bank charges, your credit card statements, your savings accounts and investments accounts? What about the 401k at work, right? Sandy just gave a great story how she was looking at it and she said, no more, I'm going to take control over it. It's mine now to manage. So make sure that you're getting this information regularly, either online or the mail or both. And you also have to know what's going on in the general market and economy. And we hear these numbers being tossed around, the S&P did this or the Dow did that. It can get very confusing, I know. Just recognize that these are just two different indices to measure the market. But if you're an investor, you've got to know these things and get a general sense of the economy. And you can think about it like this, especially if you're a mom. If you're sending your kids out to play, right? What's the first question that you're going to ask? What's the weather outside? Do they need a hat? Do they need a coat? And then you're going to prepare for those weather conditions accordingly. Well, financial advisors and investors, they want to do the same thing. It's why they look for that information, because it can present an opportunity, or they might need to sell some of the positions that they own. Another characteristic and trait of the financially fearless woman is that they know what they own. That in itself creates a great sense of security. And I'll use my mother as an example. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. My mother, she's been married, divorced, remarried, widowed, working, and now retired. And at 73, she is one of the most financially organized, fearless female investors that I know, because she knows what she owns. She knows her investments, her real estate, her collectibles, her automobile. She makes very good, intelligent decisions about her life and her lifestyle. This also includes her health. Volunteer. She's got a great hobby. She's a playwright. So knowing what you own helps with all of these decisions making. So that's the easy part, right? Knowing what you own. It's what you owe. This is the part that's really tough for women to master. I bet when I mention the word debt, right, it gets you a little nervous. We talked about fear tonight. It automatically sets in. I'm sure that credit card debt and student loan debt, if you have it, it rises to the top. I'll talk a little bit about credit debt in a few minutes. But whatever debt you own, it becomes important to know what is the interest rate attached to that debt service. Okay, and if you know that, then you can figure out an action plan to aggressively attack it and know how long it will take for you to pay it off. So I don't want you to think that financially fearless women don't have debt. They do. But the difference is this. They control the debt. The debt doesn't control them. And She Capital wrote about this in our online 3-part financial self-defense blog. It's called the Personal Net Worth Statement. I'll show it to you right here. And you can go to our blog and just download it for free, or you can email me, tina.powell@shecapital, and I'll make sure that you get it. So I know credit card, whenever the subject of debt comes, credit card, we need to just have a discussion about it. First thing you have to do, financially fearless woman, I'm talking to you. You need to get a copy of your credit card report, and you need to make sure that it's correct and go through it line item by line item. You want to know exactly how many credit cards you have in your name, how much you owe, and what the annual percentage rate is. You also have to stay away from retail credit cards like Home Goods. Okay, this is how a lot of women get into trouble. Now picture this, right? The last time we all went holiday shopping, you get up to the register with a big bunch of merchandise, and the cash register, the salesperson says, "Ooh, would you like to save 10% off your first purchase?" And you are going to say no. Okay, you do not want to open up one of those credit cards, and I'll tell you why. You will pay 26.99% in interest. Look at the fine print, open up the piece of paper, it's sick. Okay, so promise me you will not get sucked in or pressured at the cash register the next time that you make a purchase. It sounds so basic, but you would be surprised how many women fall victim to that 10% offer. So if you do have credit card debt, let me just run through a couple of strategies. I'll go through them quickly. I know we have about 10 minutes left. So the first thing that I did that worked really well for me is I put them in the freezer. I put them in the freezer in water. No, I did not cut them up. Cutting them up only made me a little bit more anxious and made me want to use them even more. So I put them in the freezer, and that worked great. The second thing, if you have a good credit score, what does that mean? Anywhere between 700 and 749 points, you can apply for a balance transfer card where your annual percentage rate is 0%, but it's for a period of time, sometimes as long as 18 months. But opening of that card can also have a negative effect on your credit score. So you have to beware. You have to weigh the pros and cons. I love also Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method, where you're going to pay the balance off for the card with the lowest balance first, and in that way you're going to, you're going to celebrate the small wins and victories. They're actually big wins, but it will give you the motivation to keep on going. Emergency fund. If you follow Susie Orman, she's a big proponent of emergency funds, and so are we. A few more slides we'll be talking about investment, but this stuff is so important. It's so basic, but it's so important. Before you do anything, make sure that you build an emergency fund. Every financially fearless woman has an emergency fund which contains at least 6 months of cash needs. Okay? It sounds like a lot. Is it a lot? Yep, it is. How do you build it? You're going to build it slowly over time. And remember the quote from our earlier session, right? Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. And the best way to do this stuff is to make it automatic, even with as little as $100 a month. Because it's about the behavior modification that you need to master more than the actual amount, right? The actual amounts can change with as you earn more, as you get a little better with your money and budgeting, but you need to set it and forget it. This will also incent you to improve just your overall cushion of safety and security. And for women, that is huge. Okay, women who have added this cushion, and I use my mother again as an example in some of our female clients, they're confident in their actions. And this includes negotiating, whether or not they're buying a new car, negotiating a salary increase. Secure women carry themselves differently. You can see it. We know who these women are. Bottom line is, I want and I believe that every single woman on this broadcast can also be one of these women. It's part of the reason that we're bringing it to you here tonight. So we've covered a lot so far, and the priorities for women are going to be different, right? Kelly, Sherry, Miriam, Cheryl, each one has a different goal and a different financial goal. The most important thing, and I want to make sure that as you leave the broadcast later, that you do a little bit of work. I want you to do a small project for me, and that is think about and identify what that thing is. What's that financial goal? Okay, one goal. Don't make it so overwhelming. Don't try to tackle too many things. Could be paying down your credit card debt. Maybe it's paying off your mortgage or creating an investment account. Whatever that is for you. I'm giving you a template to help you make it happen. Okay? It's one of our first things that we do with clients. It's the most critical step of the financial planning process, is to know the goal. Okay, now it's time to invest. There are lots of different strategies. You can work with an advisor directly. She Capital, we offer a low-cost, online, globally diversified portfolio. We do also, if you're already working with someone else, or perhaps you're already self-managed and you already have an account, we will do a comparison of your current holdings and recommend a strategy for any financially fearless woman on this call. It's all complimentary. How do you do that? You can visit shecapital.com for more information, or you can just reach out to me directly at tina.powell@shecapital.com. Regardless of who you're working with, know how much you are paying in fees and know everything you possibly can. Ask questions, take a seat at the table, and be involved in your financial life. So with that, let me say a big thank you to all of the financially fearless women on this broadcast. I also want to thank Dr. J and Option Monster, most of all Sandy Chaikin and Chaikin Analytics. Sandy, I turn it over to you. I don't know if there are any other questions from our financially fearless audience, but I'm ready.
Tina, thank you. That was really inspiring and terrific content, so helpful. There are a few questions here. Courtney is asking, should you wait to start investing until after you have your debt paid down and your 6-month emergency fund in place?
So I would say, and that question was, repeat the name for me again, please?
Courtney.
Courtney. Okay, thanks, Courtney. Thanks for that question. So, Courtney, one of the things that I would love for you to check out, if there's a retirement plan at work, especially if they're matching that contribution. So, you can do those things. You can do those 3 things at the same time. Pay down your debt, start an investment account, and have an emergency fund. Let's go back to that personal net worth statement, right? I want to understand how much you own, what are you bringing home, what do you owe, and then how much cash do you have left after you pay all of your fixed expenses. Perhaps you have a mortgage or a car payment or things like that. So if you can take some of that money and put it towards retirement, boy, would that be in your best interest. And again, remember, it's about the behavior. It's not so much about what that exact amount is. Master the behavior, and then you can increase the amounts later in life. And I hope that I've answered your question, Courtney.
Okay, Tina, thank you. There's a comment from Patricia saying she likes the statement, secure women carry themselves differently. She thanks you for that.
Thank you.
And let's see, there's a question from Suja. Will all of these be available to listen to later? Trying to follow along and type while balancing mommy duty and bedtime routines. Yes.
Suja,
yes,
thank you so much. This is what we're talking about, right? Like women chief everything officers we are. And how wonderful that you tuned in tonight, and all of the speakers today, the great presenters. There's 7 great presenters here. We're all grateful for your time. Yes, when you register for tonight's Fearless 7 webinar, you get all presentations.
Exactly. We'll send you the links tonight, but also you can go to my website, sandychaikin.com, go to resources, and you will see a bio and a link to each speaker's website. Suja says, God bless you. And Kelly says, awesome points. So, Tina, that's great. You really resonated with the audience. That's fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. And our fearless women stay on. And again, even if you have to break and do whatever you need to do, you know, you'll have copies of these presentations. And we're all here for the same reason, and that is to empower women. So if there's something, if a question comes to you after this presentation, I know that we will all make ourselves available to have those conversations one-on-one. So you'll have our contact information to do that. So good luck, everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Tina, thank you so much. Awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Pamela says she's really enjoying these presentations. I have to say, there's nobody dropped off. I could monitor the attendee number, and nobody has dropped off since we started. So I think we're resonating with our audience, which is terrific. Okay, let's see. Let's move on to Marcia Mantell now. Marcia is founder and president of Mantell Retirement Consulting. For nearly 25 years, Marcia has helped educate and motivate baby boomers take the right steps to achieve the retirement they deserve and want, serving the country's foremost financial service firms and advisors, including Fidelity. Marcia has written her first book, What's the Deal with Retirement? Planning for Women, where she takes a provoking but non-traditional fun approach to planning for a woman's retirement. And I have to say, I've read both Marcia's and Peggy's books, and they are really interesting. I encourage you all to do the same. So Marcia, why don't we turn this over to you?
Thank you so much, Sandy, and welcome everyone to the retirement portion of our Financially Fearless web event. Can everyone hear me okay? Good, I'll take that as a yes. Well, I am delighted to be here. I am so thankful to you, Sandy, for making this opportunity for all of us and at Chaikin Analytics. I loved the power gauge. I hadn't seen that before, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm feeling so much more inspired now after hearing from Peggy and Tina. And I can tell you some of my millennial nieces are on tonight. My daughters couldn't make it, but whether you're a boomer or a millennial or Gen Xer, all this information is so powerful. And imagine for us boomers and us older women what we could have done with this when we were 20 years old or 25 years old. So I'm super excited to be here. And what I'm hoping to do for you tonight is help you become financially fearless before you retire. So let's jump in. And so that you can get an idea, let's see, my slides are not advancing. Joe, are you seeing slides advancing on your end?
We can see the presentation. Go ahead and click on your PowerPoint presentation, the actual PowerPoint itself, and then go ahead and see. There you go.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is me, Marcia Mantell. I'm a wife and mother, longtime married to my wonderful husband, Dan. We have 2 children, 2 wonderful daughters, the millennials. They are going to become financially fearless. It's tough to live with an investment manager and a mom who does retirement and not become financially fearless, but they're dragging their heels, my girls. I'm the family chef. You know, like all mothers, it seems, and I love the one of our listeners who said, you know, I'm juggling all this mom duty right now. We juggle it all. So the fact that the moms have taken time out to be here, I'm so appreciative. And, you know, do your thing, moms. It's a really tough balance. The hopeful gardener, that is me as well. I hope to have some flowers blooming in my garden next year. That's one of my short-term goals. So I've been in the retirement industry, as Sandy mentioned, for a long time, almost 25 years, the last 10 with my own business and 13 years with Fidelity Investments before that. And I'm an author and blogger, but mostly I'm a champion for women. Like these other presenters that you're hearing tonight, women seem to have so many grand plans. We know what we want to do in retirement, but we might need some extra help. We're not always confident. So I'd like to toss a question out to the audience and ask you, just yes or no, do you feel confident that you are on track for retirement at this very moment? And as you are putting in your yes or no's, let me also send a big thank you out to my mom and dad for this solid baseline of money management that they gave me growing up, whether it was my Girl Scout shopping badge or learning the value of saying no and not crying about it. I do have a lot to be grateful for there. And Tina, you mentioned that foundation your parents provide can be so key. And Peggy, as you mentioned, the birth order is also key in that dynamic in the family. So I have a lot to be grateful for there as the firstborn.
Marcia, I can give you some of the feedback here from your question. A few yeses.
Oh, good.
I have to say, yeah, a few yeses. Lynn, let's see, not too many yeses.
Nope.
Catherine is a yes. Lots of no's. Angie says, just a reminder, we're not all normal. Daphne says yes. Heidi says yes, but a huge preponderance of no's, I have to say.
Okay, and this is my experience out talking with women across the country as well, which I'll share with you all in a bit. We have so much information, so little time. We're doing so well. We have a great basket of skills, women as a population, and yet we're not always very confident on the money front, and particularly getting ready to retire. So you're leaving one paycheck behind, and you're going to need to invent and create a new paycheck. And it's a big change. So today, let me share with you why I am so passionate about retirement planning for women. Now, I know my dad's on tonight, and I know there are a few other gentlemen on, so welcome to the guys. Thank you for representing the males. And I'm very passionate about you as well. But this retirement planning for women, for me, has an interesting backstory that started in 1988. And it all centers around this blue couch. I don't normally put a blue couch in my presentations, but this has a purpose. And those are my children many years ago, back in 1996, when the little one was born. We had the blue couch, we sat on it, we watched videos, we played. It was a great piece of furniture. But why is this so important to my backstory? Well, in 1988, when my husband Dan and I moved out here to New England, to the Boston area, and we were just getting set up with our life, we needed furniture. And we bought a couch, which cost us $2,200, which was a lot of money for us back then, as we were just getting started out. Now, unfortunately, where we got our $2,200 is the reason I'm so concerned and passionate about women preparing well for retirement. The $2,200 came from my 401k from the company I had been working at in the early 80s. Well, back then, when you left a company, you got a check from your 401k. There was nowhere for this money to go. We looked at it as bonus money or furniture buying money. And as many of us have done over time, we've made mistakes with our money. And in this case, if we had known, if we knew to just put it in an IRA or invest it in a taxable account, put it in the Fidelity Magellan Fund, which was roaring back in the 80s and the 90s, and left that $3,000, quote, bonus check until my retirement in 2027, do you know how much that would be worth today or in 2027? It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $260,000. So that couch that my kid sat on and played on was a huge mistake, it turns out. And when I was working in the retirement industry and figured this out, and looking back, oh, how could I have done that? Well, I came up with, but I didn't know. I didn't know this stuff when I was 25 years old. I didn't know $3,000 was so important to my future retirement. But this I didn't know, you know what, it doesn't fly anymore, ladies. We can't be saying IDK. It's the things we don't know that can derail our retirement. So what I want to do tonight is give you some encouragement and then B, some questions for you to ask yourselves and get to the answers well before you retire so that you will know. We just can no longer, and Sandy, I loved your phrase earlier, it's a new economy. It's a new everything out there. The whole retirement world has turned on its head, starting with the boomers, and for anyone younger, you're on your own. So you need to know that planning for retirement does take time, as you've already heard tonight, and it takes skills, but they're not the ones you would expect. These are skills you already have: organization, attention to details, making lists, and talking. Now, ladies, let's face it, we love to talk. We talk about almost everything out there, and I talk about it in terms of the M words. Right, we talk about it. Peggy, I loved your conversation about our mothers. Sorry, Mama, I know you're on too. But we do talk about our mothers and our mothers-in-law. We talk about our marriages. We talk about Merlots and martinis. We talk about mammograms and the misery of menopause. Women, there's almost nothing we don't talk about except money. And when all of a sudden somebody brings up a money topic, for so many of us, we go stunningly silent. And I've just been pondering this. Why? Why is this? Why can women who talk about every health issue under the sun, why can we not talk constructively about money? And it's a challenge. Now, Peggy gave us some insight, and Tina gave us some insight. And for me, I've been trying to come up with a theory, and I've landed on it's like a foreign language. You know, you saw those charts from Sandy. They look pretty intimidating initially, but they're really not. Once you spend some time with them, they're amazing. I give those the wow factor. But it's like learning that foreign language, and it takes time and some effort. And my sister lived in Japan. For a quick example, she moved to Japan as an adult for 2 years. She had an opportunity to go with her two daughters, and they lived in Tokyo. And she didn't know one single word in Japanese when she went there. Well, my family and I got to visit her 18 months later. And it was amazing to listen to her speak to the cab drivers in Japanese and order food at a restaurant in Japanese and make the train schedules understandable for us. She was like our own personal tour guide, that in 18 months she had learned enough of this language where she was very proficient. And so I'm throwing that out to you, that it's going to take a little bit of time, but it was talking. She tried the language, she worked on the language, she came up with enough fluency where she was successful. And that's one of the key things we need to do, is recognize it takes time, but don't be scared of it. So what else can we do? We have 3 other key skills besides our talking. Financial organization. We organize things. Women are organizers, and it's not that difficult to do. So color coding is my key success in life. I color code my calendars, I color code my files. You need to organize, find your method, binders, folders, online, that works for you to organize the his, hers, and ours of all of your financial stuff so that you can use it. You know, piling this stuff up on a desk isn't going to work. And what I'm specifically talking about is employer plans. If you're married, you need your folders. Mine are red, Dan's are blue, and we have files for our 401ks and my SEP IRA now that I'm self-employed, and our various IRAs. Our taxes, they go in the green folders in a different drawer, but they're organized and orderly. Your bank account, your insurance documents, your passwords, so that you can get in and out of accounts. Find a structure, because you already organize everything else. Now find it for your financial papers. Critical in getting ready to retire. You need to know where everything is and how much of everything you have. Attention to detail, another key skill that women, you know, we just look at this stuff like, oh, it's just what we do. You know, we just run the show, we run the house. What did you call it, Tina? The chief everything officer. You know, this is just what we do. Well, it's not. It's a skill, and it's really critical to understanding our cash flow, not only today, but as we move into retirement and have to create a cash flow. So we do things like balance our checkbooks to the penny. We pay bills on time. We manage our credit cards, maybe well, maybe not so well, but we're involved in it, and we know that flow of money as it's coming in and out of our households. We're mindful of our investments, so we know what we have, but we don't always know what to do with that. So my suggestion to you here is schedule specific time that's on your calendar. If you block in your calendar, you tend to do that task. So it's no different for your investments. If you book time to get, Katie to soccer and Lindsay to karate and then dinner on the table, you can schedule some time to look at your investments. And it is once a month, it's once a quarter, it's at tax time. Pick your time frame, put it on the calendar, lock it in, and do it. And it's going to be very key. So what am I really talking about? It's about that following a recipe. If you can follow a recipe in the kitchen, you can follow a recipe in financial management and retirement management. And, I mentioned earlier I spend a lot of time in my kitchen. Well, everyone marvels that dinner can come out at the right time. Everything comes out on time, cooked properly, and on the table all at once. And people will ask, how do you do that? Well, I don't really know. I just do it. And you need to get to that same level of comfort with your finances, and it does start with a recipe. I mean, it just didn't happen overnight that I can get a meal on the table. I've done it for 35 years. You get kind of good at things after 35 years. So create your recipe. We also make lists. And I find lists will probably be the most important tool in your tool bag as you get ready for retirement. And it's making a list that defines your essential must-have items. It can be, you can take it from the traditional perspective of you have a mortgage and you have health insurance and you have this, that, and the other thing, all these expenditures. I like to look at it another way, and I list family things first. It's really important for me to have my family around at holidays, and my kids live in Minnesota and California now. I love for them to come home. So those things come first, and I expect they will continue to come first as I move into retirement eventually. The hobbies and fun, the stuff I want to spend my time doing, those come first. So look at those, make those lists, define what you want your retirement to be, and then put a price tag on it. And that's the piece we don't always do. We're sometimes really good at coming up with the list, and then, yeah, we forget that we need to pay for all this stuff. So do those things. You can no longer say, I don't know. So how do you make it work? And Tina said it as well. Write this stuff down. Write your goals down, your retirement planning down, and then get talking about money and finances and investments. And use these skills you already have to rein in your household finances. So now, how do you get started? Where do you begin this whole process of getting ready to retire? And what are women telling me out in the field? So one of the things I get to do with my own business, I often have opportunities to travel various places in the country, literally coast to coast, north to south, and meet with roomfuls of women, 100, 150, 200 people at a time, largely women. It's through many employers. They invite me to come in and speak to their employees about getting ready for retirement. And what I'm finding is these women are wonderful. And again, they know exactly what they want to do in retirement, and they really want to quit working. And then when I ask them that confidence question, they're not confident. They really say, I have no idea. So I say, all right, let's take a step back. Where do you start? The first question I think you need to answer for yourselves is, what do I want to do when I retire? It seems like it's a really easy question. Like, really? This is where you're starting? Well, yes, it is. I'm starting with this because the fact of the matter is, most people have no idea what they want to do when they have nothing but time on their hands. But here are the top 5 answers I get. I ask every audience, and these are the answers I get 100% of the time in this order. I'm going to travel. It seems like every person in America is going to travel when they retire. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to spend time with my grandchildren. I'm going to garden. And some people tell me they're going to set up an organic farm, so even beyond gardening. And every baby boomer across the country is going to exercise. Well, I hope they all get their wish list. But it seems that perhaps they're not really getting to the core of this question. These are great in concept, but they've never assigned a time to these activities, or they haven't researched where they're going to volunteer. So as soon as I start asking the next layer of questions, it is that deer in the headlights. Like, oh, I never thought about travel as 365 days a year times 30 years in retirement. I guess I was only thinking I'm going to go away for a month. Well, you've got a long retirement. You probably need to think about something more than a month. Or, volunteer. One woman did know she was going to volunteer at a pet shelter, and she was already doing that. But most other people just generically say they're going to volunteer. So my exercise for you is really think about your days. When you don't work between 8 and 6 or whatever your work hours are, if you're not doing that any longer, what will you do? And find something that will anchor your days. It doesn't have to be pressure packed. It can be very casual, but think about really what it will be. And it's harder to do than you might think, and it's also preparing for the emotional side of retirement. During this phase, you do get to redefine yourself. You might have been in the same job or the same career, general career, for the last 30 years, and that's great, but really the last time you had an opportunity to really redefine yourself was when you went to college or when you left high school and started your first job. So it's been a while. We're kind of rusty at this. So take more than a weekend, think about it, start talking about it. What are others doing? Now, once you start thinking about what I want to do and how I want to fill my days, how much money will I need? And is $1 million out of the realm of possibility? Well, you know what? It's not. So here's the way I think about how much you need. It all depends on your answers to question number 1 of what you will be doing. Now, of course, it also depends on how much other debt or obligations you have and how much you spend, but you need to think about retirement is not going to be cheap. And interestingly, one study came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics came up with a number, and they estimated it costs someone who lives to 100 about $3.5 million over their lifetime. And it's a pretty startling number. But look at it, it's 1.5 million you spend by the time you turn 50, then another 1.4 million between 50 and 80, and then $630,000 between 80 and 100. So if you look at how much you're really spending in your household and then over this long span of 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it does get into the millions. So when I think about how much I need, I look again at where do I want to spend the money or what do I want to do. So 766, what is this number? Well, this is how much I just paid for a plane ticket for my older daughter to come home for the holidays from California to Boston. Well, I won't always fly her home, but if she has grandchildren out in California, let me assure you I'll be on a plane out to California several times a year. So I need to budget that in. Anytime you spend $100 a week on something, when you're looking at retirement, now it's $5,200 a year for every $100 you're spending. So what things do you have on your list where you're spending $100 a week? It's not that hard to spend $100 a week. And $200,000, well, this is a number here mainly to give you the context for healthcare. Healthcare in retirement will be a really big nugget to solve for. And whether it's $100,000 in aggregate or 200 or more, depending on your health, the point is it's not going to be inexpensive when you have healthcare needs in retirement. So think about that budgeting and work out some numbers. Now, third question, how big is my Freedom Fund? Well, I love this concept of the Freedom Fund, and let me tell you what I mean by that. These are accounts, ladies, with your name on the account and only your name. These are not joint accounts. These are accounts where the money in it is money you direct and you invest and you spend, and accounts where you name the beneficiary. Why is this so important? And I think maybe more for boomers. In that slide from Tina where she showed you the 3 different generations, boomers grew up in a very, very different environment than our Gen Xers and certainly from our children, the millennials. Well, for lots and lots of boomer women, including myself, if you were the one who got married early, everything was joint in most marriages financially. Dan and I didn't have a nickel when we got married, and so anything we had, we threw into one checking account, one savings account, and it was our money. And then 20 years go by, and all of a sudden it occurs to me, I have nothing in my name. So what now is a big joke at our house, we call it the Marcia Freedom Fund, started out as a financial fight between the two of us, where I wanted an account with just my name on it. And Dan's position was, well, we always have done everything jointly. Why do you want your own money? And I couldn't really explain why I wanted my own money, except I knew I should have some of my own money. Now, by the way, Dan should also have a bucket, his own Freedom Fund, but he's the one who came up with this idea after we argued over weeks and weeks about money and who should have it and so forth. It's very interesting that so many boomer women I talk to in these events around the country, they don't have anything in their own name except their 403B or their 401k. And it never occurred to them maybe they too should have a Freedom Fund. So think about that from your perspective. Now, do I really have to worry about retirement? If I have a husband, I told you I have a wonderful husband. Should I worry about retirement? Yes. It is not Dan's job to provide for my retirement, nor is it your husband's job to provide for you. You need to get in the game. But what if you have a pension? I hear this from lots of teachers. Oh, but I have a pension plan. Well, you know what? You have a pension plan today, but yes, you really need to worry about retirement because there's no guarantee that pension plan will be there for the next 40 years that it needs to pay out to you. So think about your retirement with the pension plan and have a backup plan B if it's not there. And the other big question I get is, or comment, oh, I don't have to worry about retirement. My house is paid off. Well, you know what? Yes, you do. Just because your mortgage is paid off doesn't mean that house isn't costing you a small fortune. Property taxes, insurance, repairs, and renovations. The first thing many retirees tell me is, oh, I retired, I'm going to cook a lot more. I needed a new kitchen. So $50,000 later, they have a new kitchen. So yes, you do have to worry about a retirement even when you have a good foundation of other options. So that brings me to my last question that you need to ask yourselves, and that is, when should I really start Social Security? So a little backdrop here. Ladies, you need to really understand that today in America we are extremely fortunate that we have a very long life expectancy if we first reach age 65. So let's assume we're all going to make 65, and if so, your average life expectancy is to age 88. But there's a 25% chance that you'll live to 94. So we are talking about a 30-year retirement. When you have 30 years with no paycheck, you really want Social Security working for you. So this is a to-do. Go on to Social Security's website, ssa.gov, if you haven't done this before. And what you want to particularly print out is what you see on the bottom left, My Social Security. That's where you get your statement. You need to look at your statement, read your statement, understand what's there, because your Social Security benefit will be calculated based on your earnings history. Now, you may also be eligible for a spouse benefit, but let's worry about your earnings history first. You need to know and understand that optimal Social Security benefits come at your full retirement age, which is 66 or 67 right now. You also need to know that at age 70, you can maximize the amount of Social Security you get and can get as much as 32% more in monthly income than you do at your full retirement age. And age 62, you can tap Social Security that early, and sometimes you would have to do that. Certain times situations call for that. But in that case, you will lock in a 25 or a 30% permanent reduction in your monthly income. So unless you've got a really big freedom fund that's going to fund your retirement, 62 is probably not the best alternative for you. So lots of things to think about. Where do you start? We covered things quickly, but getting started is less difficult than you might think. And it's about knowing your resources. The most important thing, and again, I think it was Tina who said, there is no magic that financially fearless women are using. There is no crystal ball, there is no formula, there's nothing magic about what we do. We read. That is the number one thing you can do, is read something financial every day. I recommend the USA Today Money section. I think it's short and sweet and fits into my day, as well as the Wall Street Journal. Pick one investment company and read everything they have to offer. And then, I would be remiss if I didn't give a little plug to my new book, What's the Deal with Retirement Planning for Women? What you'll get in this book are some great stories, more questions than the ones we just covered, as well as lists of resources and some steps for how to take control of retirement. And then use the resources that are out there. My blog is Boomer Retirement Briefs. You can read about what lots of boomers are doing to reinvent their retirement. And I do have several free worksheets on there that will help you get started on your path to defining your retirement. Because again, we want you to be financially fearless when it comes your turn to say, I quit. So with that, Sandy, if there are any questions or any comments?
Marsha, there are some questions. Let's see. Elaine says lifetime rule. It just jumped from her. Lifetime rule. Multiply money 3 to 4 times before it can be used for disposable expenses. Money is a tool and should be put to work first.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Elaine would like you to comment on that.
Well, I think it's a good position to have. And kind of hearkening back to what Tina was talking about, there are pins you need to put in place first, and you cannot diminish the fact that your money needs to work really hard for you. So you can't just earn your money and then spend it wisely and save a little. You need to take that savings, set up your emergency fund first, and then make sure you're investing wisely. Get that money really working for you. And of course, the longer the time you have, the better, but it's never too late.
Good point. And just one quick, there are a few more questions, but I'm afraid we don't have time for all of them. So Sherry is saying there's a new law eliminating the spousal benefit for Social Security for those born after I think she meant 64.
Yeah, and it didn't eliminate spousal benefits. It did change the claim and suspend and the restricted application. So there are a few birth years where it still applies. You needed to be 62 by the end of 2015 and turning 66 by May 1st of this year. So a few people still fall in that band, but for most of us, it's much cleaner. You are eligible for Social Security on your own work record, and if you're married, you have a spousal benefit, but you're linked together. You need to think about being married as being one unit, even though there are two people. But yeah, there have been changes to Social Security. So again, socialsecurity.gov, ssa.gov is a very important website to know and love.
And Mary Beth Franklin, who's a Social Security expert, writes for Investment News. Google her as well. She writes terrific articles, and she was actually interviewed on one of my Financially Fearless podcast. You can hear her audio on sandychaikin.com. But she writes terrific articles. I think you would agree, Marcia.
I love her articles. They're extremely clear, and she always answers one big question in each article. Yeah. It's outstanding.
Yeah, she's terrific. Well, you're terrific too, Marcia. Thank you. This was really enlightening and fantastic information. And,
thank you so much for the opportunity, Sandy.
Thank you for being part of this. This is great. Okay, I'm thrilled to see that the audience is still holding constant, the same number, so everyone is still waiting for our next speaker, Emily Boothright. Let me introduce Emily. She's a certified financial planner, certified divorce financial analyst, and private wealth advisor at Private Advisor Group. Emily demystifies financial planning and strives to make women an integral part of the conversation, build confidence, there's that confidence coming back again, and become financially well. She believes accumulating wealth isn't the end goal, it's creating the life you want through proper planning and execution. Emily helps women do just that. So let's turn this over to Emily now.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Sandy. I'm thrilled to be on tonight, and, we were talking about some of the mommy balancing, so I was rushing to get here after putting my 2-year-old to bed. And it's just so exciting to me to participate kind of in a group where I know that we're addressing women, who have some concerns about finance, and I just think it's so important to address some of the preliminary issues, before we even go and dive really deep into the inquiry of kind of, what our financial plans should look like. So today I'm really excited to talk to you about a few ways to fear less. So with that, I'm going to move forward with some of the drier stuff. So what qualifies me to speak to you about financial well-being? I'm a licensed attorney. I focused on estate planning and practiced primarily in Connecticut, but also in New York. As Sandy said, I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm also a certified divorce financial analyst. And so, those qualifications are certainly helpful. But what really drives me is my family, my daughter, and my background. So quickly, my first kind of introduction to the world of finance was when my parents went bankrupt and we lost pretty much everything that we had. And while most women, I know a lot of women who had a catalyst like that caused them to inquire further into finance, it actually drove me away from money and made me kind of not want to talk about money, think about money, or deal with it because it was such a source of difficulty for me. I came around to finance really through my career. I had worked in estate planning with clients and absolutely loved it, and wanted to continue to work with them on a more holistic level, and moved into financial planning. Having a daughter changed me, and I think having kids changes everyone in an absolutely wonderful way. As I look at her, and as I think about the seminars that we're doing, the conversations that we're having, I think that they're so important. They're so empowering. They're so crucial for all women to be having this as an open dialogue. But my hope is that by the time my daughter is handling her own finances, we're not still talking about how to get engaged, how to think about it. I want it to be commonplace for her. I want her to feel just like any of her other colleagues and any of her male colleagues, to ask for a raise, to talk about large financial purchases, and to feel comfortable managing her own retirement account. And I want this to not be novel. I want this to be just everyone does it. And so that's really my hope, that by discussing all of this together, we as a group can begin to shed some light on finance. So women are still missing the conversation, and I'm sure these statistics have been thrown around before, but 8 out of 10 women are uncomfortable talking about money with people that they're close to. 60% of women do worry about not having enough money to last them through retirement, and that was found in a lovely study that Fidelity did to focus on women and to understand a little bit more about what's going on in their financial world. For me, it's so interesting because I think, and there's a quote up here for those of you who are kind of listening while you're doing different things. It says, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark, but the real tragedy of life is when," and I've inserted women, is when women are afraid of the light. So what this means is that when I put my daughter to bed, and we look around her room, when you turn out the lights, even the most familiar of stuffed animals or cribs or rocking chairs can seem scary. They can seem like monsters. And so what it is it's really just not fully understanding or seeing what's going on in the room around you. And so I think a lot of us, when we don't understand something, when we're confronted with so much jargon, so much information, we've got, the talking heads on the television with tickers running on the top, on the bottom. We've got blurbs everywhere. It can be so confusing to try to begin to think about your own finances, to look at the stock market, to look at all the things going on. It can be so overwhelming. And I think what's really important is to begin to shed light in a way that's sustainable and comfortable for you. So how do we fear less? And, I love the term fearless. I think it's fun. I think it's amazing. But I will say I'm a little bit of a contrarian in this perspective. I think a little bit of fear is okay. I think it's okay to be afraid of certain things. And I think that fear to me is an indicator. It's kind of a personal barometer for how am I doing? How am I feeling about something? And it to me is the beginning of an inquiry that we need to dive deeper into. When I'm fearful of something, fear is what has sustained us as a species, right? You need to be afraid of certain things. But I think that as we begin to address our fear, I think that we will separate the true fear and the fear that's okay to keep, okay to have, and okay to kind of understand, versus the fear that is really based on something that you may have seen before, but it's the acronym that people have applied, which is false evidence appearing real. So the more that we're able to educate ourselves, get us comfortable with what's going on in the financial world around us, I think that we're able to sift through the fears that should stay versus the fears that should go. And I'll give you a few examples of what I'm talking about. I think that it's perfectly okay to be afraid of losing your money. I don't know that that's something that's ever really going to go away, and I think it's something that can inform you and can inform your choices as an investor. So when we try to put our fear aside and pretend that it's not there, and try to become bolder than we really need to be, I think that sometimes we can sway ourselves into having an unrealistic risk tolerance. So I do think it's important to understand who you are as a person, who you are as an investor, and not try to compare yourself with what you think you should be, but to make informed choices about your risk tolerance and about what you're comfortable with. Not with the idea of shedding any and all fear or concern, but really with the focus on understanding yourself and understanding how you need to invest around who you are. So there are a lot of fears that I, hear in my office on a regular basis, and I deal with people who have, a varying kind of spectrum of money, and I deal with women of a lot of different ages. I have clients who are 20 years old, and I have clients who are 80 years old. And, a lot of these fears are similar. So I think what's important to remember, too, is that you're not alone in having any concerns or fears about what's going on in your life and what's going on in your future. So a lot of the fears are not having enough to retire. And then there's also the kind of almost stage fright fear when you go in to meet with a financial advisor or when you're discussing your money matters, is that you won't know what you're doing, or that you'll ask basic questions that are holding people back. There's concerns about losing money if it's invested. There are also concerns about making the wrong decisions. I think sometimes we can get into that analysis paralysis, where you become so concerned about making the right decision that perhaps you won't make any decisions at all. And then there's another fear for a lot of women, which is that they won't have enough or leave enough to their children. And I've seen it happen quite a bit. And I wrote an article on this, I think 2 years ago, talking about how a lot of the millennial moms that I've seen have been favoring their children's college savings over their own retirement fund. And while I think that that's noble, and I get it, and I love my daughter, and I want her to have everything, in the world, and I think that's what happens when you have children. You want to give so much to the people that you love. For me, it's so important that I'm not sleeping on my daughter's couch when she's 30. So I was just on a plane, and I had my daughter on the plane, and the stewardess, not specifically to me, but did the generic reminder, before you assist anyone else with their oxygen mask, you need to fasten your own. And so for me, it's been really, really important to fasten my own oxygen mask, to make sure that I'm saving enough for my retirement, that I'm prioritizing that, and then certainly saving for my daughter's college. But it's the same with the estate planning and with a lot of this. You want to really make sure that you are focusing on yourself. I think women as givers, as mothers, as spouses, as coworkers, tend to be such fantastic team players and are excellent working in a collaborative environment. But I also think it's very important at certain points to focus on yourself and to understand what it is that you need and to make yourself a top priority. So here are 5 ways to fear a little bit less. And the first is to start talking about money. What's really interesting is that, in circles that I've seen, people would rather talk about almost anything else besides money. They will spill the beans on, very personal matters before they want to tell you, what's going on in their financial lives. Now, I'm not suggesting here that we need to, make full disclosure and tell everyone everything about our financial lives, but I do think it's really important to start keying in on money and bringing it up subtly and slowly into our conversations. So one example of this is that, I have a friend of mine who works for a financial firm, makes a lot of money. And I've always been, very impressed with what she's done, and she's got fantastic style. And, I have felt at different points competitive with her. We were shopping in a high-end department store, and I was gonna, get a pair of shoes, and I was looking around, and she was with me, and she said, "God, I don't shop here." And I thought, oh, well, she must shop at a much nicer store than this. And I said, well, where do you shop? And she said, Marshall's. And for me, it was just an interesting point where, I had made an assumption about what her financial life was like and what she spent money on, and felt almost compelled to keep pace with a financial life that I found out didn't exist. She's great at saving money. She shops at Marshall's, and she's not interested in overspending. And so I think it's not just about you disclosing all of your details, but it's actively listening to what the people around you who you respect, what they do and what they think. And it's not trying to emulate what they do, but it is trying to understand where the people you respect are spending their money and what they're thinking about. So the other part is when you're interacting with people and you're hearing them talk, try to notice any biases or assumptions that pop up. Because I think sometimes the assumptions that we have, like mine about needing to shop in a high-end store or even needing to feel competitive or needing to feel as though, money's doing something for me, I think that it can shape the way that we listen, it can shape the way that we interact as consumers, and it can shape the way that we interact as investors. So I think it's all about shedding light on the subject. It's about understanding what the truth is. And when we let too many assumptions and biases get in the way, it's hard to listen, it's hard to hear the truth, and it's hard to understand where you need to be financially. So the second point is, take a Zen approach to finance. Don't beat yourself up over what you don't know. I think that's another assumption. We all kind of think that everyone may know more than we do, or someone might sound intelligent in a conversation, and so we're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to hold everyone back by asking a question. I don't even know what a bond is and how it works. I don't want to raise my hand about this one when we're talking about current interest rates. But a very Zen approach is to embrace the beginner's mind. And by that I mean that learning something new isn't a bad thing. It's really an opportunity to learn something from a fresh perspective. I think even people who have been in the industry for a long time can find themselves learning something new from even some of the most basic seminars or educational events, because it's about opening up, listening, and hearing. And I think asking questions is just such a wonderful way, because if you think about how many people are on this webinar right now, and if you think about how many women there are in the world who probably don't know a lot about their personal financial situation, you're not alone. And if you're bold enough to ask the question, you're empowering others in the room to begin to ask questions too. And so you're starting a very powerful dialogue, and you're giving other people permission to start to open up and learn as well. And I think that's really, really important. So the third I addressed a little bit before, but check out your own biases. So there are a lot of misconceptions, I think, about finance and financial planning, and it's important to examine your own money mentality to see if you have any beliefs that may or may not be serving you. Depending on how you grew up, I know that my parents' bankruptcy really impacted me, and so I grew up very much with a philosophy of lack, and so it was highly correlated to a financial hunger that I had for making sure that I was financially stable. Unfortunately, what I felt were hallmarks of being financially stable, which was spending, it was undermining my financial stability. So the very symbols that I thought represented financial stability were what were causing me to be unstable. So I think it's really important to look at your view on money and how you feel about money. And you can even do a journal exercise and just start thinking about what automatically comes up when we start saying words like money, finance, debt. Those are really important meditative exercises to get into. And while I understand that most people don't really correlate finance to meditation, I think that exploring a little bit more about who you are, would be really helpful to kind of give you the background that you need to start to inquire about your financial plan. So here are a few examples of biases that I hear a lot. The first is insurance is a scam. And I think that, a lot of people, have this idea of what an insurance salesperson is like, and think about, well, maybe I don't need insurance. People are trying to sell it to me. I think insurance is really, really important. And I'm not going to advise you specifically about insurance today, but I do think that it's important to consider. So here are a few kind of scenarios that are important to me. So when I purchased a home, it was very important to me that my family was protected, and that if I died and my income was gone, that the mortgage would still be paid, that my daughter wouldn't have to leave the home, and that everyone would be comfortable. And so I got a term life insurance policy that worked for me. Other situations are you want to make sure that you've replaced your income or your spouse's income when it comes to paying for college and things like that. So I think that it's important that we consider life insurance. And again, when I say consider, it doesn't mean that you have to get it. It means you need to know whether you need it or not. And that I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's not just about, oh, I should get this. It's about, do I need something or do I not need it? And so the other part of it is you want to consider disability insurance. If you or your spouse is a higher earner or contributes the majority, of the money to the financial picture, I think that it's really important to understand what impact it would have if you or your spouse became disabled. And so, you may have covered for it, you may have your own personal self-insurance through savings, but it's also something that you want to investigate. And so, look, I don't think that insurance is for absolutely everyone, but I think you don't want to just summarily dismiss a specific area of finance simply because of perhaps a stigma that surrounds, that area. The other is you need to have a lot of money to manage your money. I don't have enough money to worry about, so I don't need to manage it. That's something wealthy people do. And I would argue that I think it's really important for people who maybe don't think that they have a lot of money. The best way to accumulate more money is start paying attention to what you have. And I think that the more you start to focus on thinking about managing your money and managing your finances, and it's not about going on a debt diet or, trying to starve your way into, a better financial picture. Because for me, it's just, if you tell me that I can't eat carbohydrates, for example, I will find the nearest donut shop and, spend the day there. So I think it's really important to understand that this isn't just about kind of, starving yourself or trying to radically change who you are as an investor. It's about learning who you are as an investor, understanding your style, and then building your own complementary management style to accompany that. And then the last example is estate planning is for wealthy people with large estates. And I think that's a really common myth. And as an estate planning attorney, I know that I heard it a lot. But there are a lot of facets to an estate plan that a lot of people aren't familiar with, and I'll go through just a few of them. For me, it's very important that I have the guardians for my children lined up. For some people who have grown children, that may not be an issue, but if your kids are minors, I think it's crucial that you have your guardians appointed. And the other part is estate planning encompasses not just your will, where your assets are going to go, but estate planning also covers things that are called advanced directives. I'm going to say that one more time. It's advanced directives. And advanced directives include a power of attorney document, so someone who can stand in your stead in the event that you are unable to or you're simply not there. It is a very powerful document, and so you want to be very careful with who you give it to, but it does give others permission to act on your behalf. And you can also have a limited power of attorney for specific purposes. The other is a designation of conservator, and this is kind of tomato. Some people say conservator, some people say conservator, and in certain states it's called a guardian. What this means is that if you are incapacitated mentally or physically, you can have someone appointed who will assist you and act in your stead. It's different than a power of attorney, because a power of attorney, I could give someone the power of attorney and they could act on my behalf while I was on vacation or simply not around, and then I can come back and continue to act for myself. With a guardianship or designation of conservator or conservator, you are appointing someone to act in your stead because you can't, and you're basically notifying people that you are unable to act. And then the last that a lot of people may remember, there was a huge case, the Terry Schiavo case years ago in Florida. The living will is very, very important. And so what you're doing is you're giving people instructions about what you would like for your end of life decisions. It's a document that's so important, not just for you and getting what you want toward the end of your life, but it's a peace of mind document that you're giving to the people who are important to you to say, look, this is what mom wanted, or this is what, your loving wife wanted. I wanted, the following measures, so that when they do make those decisions for you, they have a piece of paper to look at to know this is what you wanted, and they have peace of mind making that decision on your behalf. So, I just rattled off a pretty large list of, some of the really important facets to estate planning. But I think that it's important to highlight that estate planning isn't just building a system of complex trusts and tax savings. It certainly is, and you can definitely do that. But it's everyone. It's for everyone to set up a roadmap of what's important to them and to give their heirs and to give the people who are acting on their behalf peace of mind knowing that they know what it is that you want and what's important to you. Number 4 is to assemble your team. When I go to the doctor, I don't just go to one doctor, right? We have different doctors who specialize in different areas. And I think it's really important to think of your financial wellness. And, I've started saying that a lot because everyone's so focused on wellness these days. And I think that's fantastic and I'm thrilled with it. But I think financial wellness is really important too. So it's not just about rushing in when you've got something going on that's an emergency. It's about maintaining health, maintaining financial health, and assembling a really great team of people around you who can assist you. And there are financial planners who can help you with everything ranging from cash flow management to your global plan and understand some of the estate planning components. There are portfolio managers, and Sandy's got her fantastic research system. Tina's starting her, or has her She Capital advisor. There are so many fantastic places to understand more about how to manage your money. And you can get assistance. It doesn't have to just be one singular person. It can be an online platform. It can be research, but that's an important facet to the entire financial plan. Estate planning, as I mentioned before, is crucial, I think, for everyone. Even if you're single and you're saying, well, they'll just know what to do, it really points people in the right direction, and it can actually save quite a bit of money on the tail end when people are administering an estate or helping you with your health decisions. Tax planning is also important. I think a lot of people consider tax to be sort of a reactive area, but you can also become very proactive on the tax side and begin to ask really smart questions like we've been talking about, and moving in and talking to your accountant and saying, how can I save more? What are steps that I need to take that would help me on my income taxes? And going to talk not just, in March or September, but talking in a month where it's not hectic and you can sit down and have a proactive planning meeting. And as I said before, I think that insurance does have a place for many people. And so it's important to integrate insurance into your overall financial plan. The last is to get organized. So as you saw in the previous presentations, checklists can be an absolute lifesaver. And so for someone, like me who's running around, I work full time, I've got my precious daughter, I've got my family, I have quite a bit going on. I can barely get through the day without a checklist. And so I love checklists just to keep you, going on the right path. And so you can access checklists at various websites. I know that Tina had a few, and Marcia had some. There's some really fantastic checklists available. But you can also create your own as you start to do your own research and figure out what's your customized checklist and what works best for you. I'd also calendar important financial events. So think about, if you're getting alimony, when that's ending or when it's paying out. If, you know that your child's going to college at a point soon, start to begin to globally calendar these savings goals and these things that are happening for you. If you know that you need to pay estimated taxes at a certain point in time. It's just starting to integrate these important financial events into your calendar, just like you would doctor appointments or anything else. You can also start to declutter your financial life using some of the fantastic online tools that are available. So it's anything from budgeting tools to beginning to understand your investment portfolio. And there are some really great, even free apps and free online tools that you can use. And I think I said this a little bit earlier, but schedule an annual checkup for yourself. So even if you're not employing physical people to work with you one-on-one, set time for yourself to review your finances at least annually, ideally much more than that, so ideally quarterly, but at the very least, do an annual checkup, just like you would an annual physical. Just to ask some questions, understand, and set your goals for the year. One final tip that I think is really helpful and that I'm encouraging my daughter to do is to be nosy and to know that it's okay to ask about your own money. This is your money. And it's important to learn what debts you have. And, I think a few of the other panelists were talking about this. You want to really understand what your balance sheet says. And it's absolutely okay to ask a lot of questions and to really want to know all of the answers. And it's okay to ask for an explanation and to keep asking until you feel 100% comfortable. I, have credentials that I'm very proud of, and I worked for, a long time to get them. But I will tell you, even the person who has the most credentials can always learn something, but sometimes we get so excited about what we know that we will forget that maybe the way that we've explained something isn't sufficient for the person that we're talking to. And so it's okay. And anyone you work with, you should feel comfortable saying, you know what? I didn't completely understand what you just said. I want to back up a little bit. Can we go over that one more time? And if anyone that you're working with who's a professional on your team doesn't have time for you to do that, I would suggest beginning to explore who could help you that will make you feel comfortable. So it's okay to be nosy. It's okay to want to know what you have. And it's really okay, to make sure that you understand what's going on. Always ask questions. And I hope and pray that my daughter is going to be the girl with her hand raised, in class at all times, really wanting to learn and wanting to understand. And it's okay to invoke that side of you, the side that used to want to learn and that was really excited about all of this. And, the right people are going to be absolutely thrilled to help you. So I hope that this has helped you to evolve a little bit into the financially fearless arena. And I thank you so much for listening and for your time tonight.
Emily, that was really informative and terrific information. Thank you so much. I do have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Elaine, warn folks about tax ramifications of giving away big assets like houses rather than trust estate pass through. Is that something you want to?
Sure. No, yeah. So, I think that and I can talk about it. that question is fantastic, or the comment is fantastic, and it's actually probably about a 2-hour webinar that we'll need to do. But look, I think it's really important to be cognizant of the fact that there are people out there who are who may be proponents of what's called a revocable trust, and they'll say you should do a revocable trust. Know that not all trusts are shields from taxes. So just because you have a trust, it doesn't mean that it's going to pass tax-free. If you need to pass an asset through to your heirs, you will likely be taxed on it if you are above the threshold in either your state or federally. Now, federally, we've got over $10 million per couple, or I believe it's approximately $5.5 million, 5.48. Or actually, it's gone up a little bit this year, excuse me, per person that you can give away. But in certain states, like good old Connecticut, where I'm located, you've got a $2 million threshold. And a lot of people might think, wow, I'm never going to get there. You add your house, some life insurance policies that you haven't properly titled in, and you're there. So it's really important to understand the tax ramifications of any and all transfers, either during life and at death.
Well, that's why it's really important to use a certified financial planner like yourself. Yes. And Tina and Zenelia and Sharon to help you navigate all these waters that are very complex and have a lot of different consequences. So thank you, Emily. One more comment from Elaine. She says, Sandy, I'd like to hear you reinforce the idea of creating passive income and diversifying income sources for safety through economic cycles and the personal storms brought to us by family needs. Mark has created a wonderful tool to help us do that. Very much easier than running businesses and less time consuming. Highlight that dividend income. So Elaine, thank you for pointing that out. And we do have many subscribers like yourself who are using Chaikin to create that extra income. So thank you. Okay, let's move on to Zenelia. Zenelia is also a certified financial planner and president of Harris & Harris Wealth Management Group. Zenelia is a shoe lover, you'll see why in a minute, appreciates quality and recognizes the power of words and compound interest. With 20-plus years of experience in finance, Zenelia is passionate about helping women become financially savvy. She's the author of the book, Finance and Stilettos, which aims to empower women while highlighting the difference between simply having money in the bank and building wealth. And I've read Zenelia's book as well, which is really entertaining and informative at the same time. And the connection with the stilettos is that women, when they're wearing stilettos, are really confident women. And that's what she tends to impart, with her advice. So, Zenelia, if that's the proper introduction for you, please take it from here.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I truly appreciate it. I guess I'm going to echo a lot of comments that were said by Peggy and Tina and Marsha, and Emily as I go through my presentation. So it's just reinforcing all of this great information that's being shared. But I want to get everyone engaged because I like to have full engagement during my presentation, and I want to start off with a question. So before I go on to the next screen, I want to ask, how many of you own or have owned a stock of your company, of a company that's in your wardrobe, such as your shoes, clothing, or cosmetics? Even better,
Okay,
how many of
let's
you own a
see.
stock of a company where you shop?
Okay, let's see. Rachel says no. Catherine says she's owned, but I don't know which one. Lululemon, Susan. Caroline, yes, maybe through a mutual fund. Nancy owns Starbucks. Let's see. Starbucks and Costco is Paula. No, never thought about it. Jerica owns Macy's. That's too bad. That's in a bearish power gauge rating, big time. Haven't owned ULTA. That's Laura. Catherine, Martha Stewart shopped her product and owned. Adrian owns Apple. You're not alone. That's the most common stock owned by individuals and institutions. DSW, there we go, shoes. Suja owns DSW, which I love too. Carmen owns Apple. There's Amazon, Estee Lauder, Apple again, TJ Maxx. I'm a big TJ Maxx shopper, but all those retail stocks aren't doing so well right now. Apple and Amazon. So I think that gives you plenty to go by, Zenelia.
It does.
Yeah.
So great, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about that as I go further on into the presentation. But let me give you a little bit of background as to who I am. I am an author, a certified financial planner, as Sandy has mentioned, and I am a member of the CNBC Financial Advisor Council. And I have been provided expertise to a list of publications, as you can see on the screen. I have over 20 years experience in the financial and accounting industry and have worked for quite a few of the large financial institutions such as Merrill Lynch and Edward Jones, PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, and the NASDAQ stock market. So I want to begin by sharing a little bit about my story. So I grew up with my grandmother, and she has had the biggest influence over my thoughts about finance. So when she was, the only time our grandmother shared emotion or with us, or that I saw emotion with her, was when she was stressing about money. And of course, that left such a great impact on me. So much so that when I went to college, one of the things that I made a priority was that I wanted to get a hand of money because I didn't want to have the worry about it that she carried. So I learned so much by watching her. And I saw her strength, I saw her determination, and I saw that she wanted more. And so did I. And so I carried that with me. Now, as you can see on the screen, you see my daughter. She's 8 years old. She is my legacy. And so I say my grandmother is why I got in the industry, but my purpose is why I stay. And she represents my purpose. I want to leave a financial legacy and my knowledge to my daughter and my community. Okay. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. So I always start with my clients and explaining to them understanding their goals and how important understanding those goals are. Why you invest in stocks is based on understanding what's your life's vision. That's why goals are important. Understanding your why makes it clear so that you know your how. Then you can develop your high and low level goals that help you achieve your vision. So I want you to take a moment and I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to visualize what it is that you want, whether that's in retirement, whether that's 5 years from now, whether that's 10 years from now. I want you to close your eyes and just take a moment and just think about what those things are. Okay? Now, what I want you to do, I want you to jot down what you saw. And then ask yourself, how can I make that happen? The final step to that is, and that has been, I'm echoing comments that have been shared earlier, is share that vision. But be conscious about who you're sharing your vision with. So I want you to think about what it is that you want. I want you to write it down, and then I want you to share it with someone. Those are things that I do. A lot of times we keep a lot of our ideas, our visions to ourselves, but it does no good if no one knows about them. Okay. Now, I want you to think about what your life would be if money were no object. What would you spend your time doing? So I want you to write that down as well and share that. Can you share that with us so that I can hear some of the things that you would want to do? Marsha mentioned, just to give you some ideas, in her presentation, and then she talked about this in regards to retirement. But some of the ideas that women have shared with her were travel, exercise, volunteer, gardening, spending more time with grandchildren. So I would say family. Are those some of yours as well?
Yeah, Zanil, I'm getting travel from Kate, from Jerica, from Kathy. Kelly says she has the list from dreaming about winning yesterday's Powerball. Kathy wants a new kitchen. Sonia would like to travel and become a motivational speaker.
Okay.
And Elaine likes to find ways to multiply money. It's fun. That's Elaine who makes money with Chaikin, and I agree, it's a lot of fun. Courtney likes to travel and spend time at the spa. Sol, travel. Let's see. Oh no, I'm sorry. Sol, continue my studies. Yeah, good for you. Jerica is make films. It's ambitious. And Linda visit my son who lives in Europe. And not be anxious and depressed about money. Yeah, that's a good goal. Angie likes to paint, do artistic and craft projects, restore old houses, and pursue creative outlets.
Wow. Those are some wonderful things. I have some of those same goals as well. And so before I move on to my next slide, I want to ask this question. What are you doing now to achieve any of those goals? And this is nothing that I want you to share, but I just want you to think about it. And I want you to write them down for yourself. Okay. Now, I want you to think about it from this perspective. If you found out you only had 6 weeks to live, what would be the most important things you would do? And if people would share their thoughts on that as well. I'm going to share what my focus would be. And in both instances, it comes up the same for me. It's enjoying family and having unique experiences. So I thought about my life. I thought about what I wanted people to say about me when I passed away. And when I thought about life from that perspective, I recognized that I wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to impart knowledge and wisdom. I wanted to gain knowledge, and I wanted to be an important role model to girls and other women in my community. Anyone shared anything, Sandy?
Hey, Zanelia, let's see. We're seeing get all of my affairs in order so my family will have an easy
Okay.
time, spend time with loved ones,
Okay.
um, write what I had learned of life so far and give it to my nephews from Seoul.
Okay. Now I want you to think about what are you doing to support those things that's most important to you. Okay. As you've seen a lot of statistics over our discussion tonight, you know that women have the power. And I like to think that as women, we run the world. You know, Beyonce's song, "Who runs the world? Girls. Who runs the world? Girls." And we need to use that power to secure our future. That's why sessions like these are powerful. It provides resources and tools for better decision making so you can support the things most important to you. Okay, now let's get to the investments. Who remember the 80s? And all of these fine items that we thought were high tech at the time. And then compare them to today. Opportunities. Opportunities start with radical changes, ideas that seem impossible, that create systems, products, and or services that are disruptors. My husband is a huge Star Trek fan. And when I sat down and watched it with him, and this is the 60s versions and not the most recent versions, I realized that technology tools that we see today were based on someone's wild imagination based on what was going on in Star Trek in the 1960s. I don't know if I have some Star Trek fans out there, but I started thinking about this, and I actually wrote a blog post about it. I was inspired to just kind of talk about paying attention to what's going on around you. So if you think back to Star Trek in the 1960s, and even if you think about the most recent versions of them, there are a couple of things that come out based on technology. So what we see, replicators, was a big thing. So what we're seeing today that kind of emulates that or is 3D printing. Driverless cars. Some of those are due out in 2017 or 2018. I know Volvo has one out. I saw it on Facebook. I was fascinated. Don't know if I want one, but I was fascinated. The ability to talk to your mobile device and it responds back to you. When you find these, you find investment opportunity. So I want you to think about when you're investing, I want you to think about when you're it's paying attention to the things that are around you. What's going on around you? And when you pay attention to what's going on around you, then if you think about it, you start seeing opportunities. So looking at sci-fi movies, if you're a sci-fi fan, can give you some clues, because probably whoever came up with the crazy idea in the sci-fi movie, somebody is trying to create whatever that technology is. Think about how you utilize products. Think about your experiences with utilizing those products. Those could be opportunities for investment ideas, the beginning of you just doing your research. Now, I want to just show this graph just so you can see about investing in companies that you utilize. So I picked 5 companies, and I can't say that all of them are performing well. I believe Sandy sent me some information based on the analytics from Chaikin, and I think all of them are bearish according to their analytics. But I still want to just kind of show you some history. So I went back 15 years to just show you performance of these 5 companies in a portfolio together. So a lot of people are Nike fans when it comes to athletics and their sneakers. I am a big Nordstrom fan because I like the experience that I have when I walk into that store. Someone else might be a DSW fan, and I do shop at DSW as well, Chico's, and Ralph Lauren. And so what this chart shows you is, as we know, stocks go up and down. This portfolio would have went up and down, and in 2008, you would have seen it do a big drop. However, in comparison to the S&P, it still outperformed. And I just put this up here because I just want you to see how looking at where you spend money is a great place to start when you start thinking about the investment choices that you have. And when you think about the investment, the places where you shop, then I think you become more engaged in what you own because you pay attention to where you shop. If you go into Target and all of a sudden they don't have the items that you want, then you start recognizing, I don't want to shop here anymore. Where if you feel this way, other people probably feel this way as well. And there could be this could be an indicator that something may be going on with the company. So I want to leave with, don't underestimate the brands that you love. And these are like shoes. You just don't want one pair. You got to have a full selection. You got to have one for this outfit, one for that outfit, one for when you're going out on the town, one for when you're hanging out with the kids. You have to have sandals. You have to have all of these. And so when you think about your shoe closet, it's the same thing with your investments. You need to be diversified. As you've experienced, the markets will have ups and downs because of global economic, national, and geopolitical influences. That's why diversity is extremely important. It can protect you during times of volatility within any one industry. Paying attention to what's happening around you is crucial. Use your sixth sense to begin investigating if changes are necessary to your portfolio. Okay. Now, women, let's become financially empowered. You want to grow your knowledge, and in growing your knowledge, you grow your net worth. You want to join or be around like-minded women, colleagues, friends, or get your friends into the mindset of taking control of their finances. Because taking control of your finances will definitely change your financial future. So become financially confident. If we want our world to be different, we can't bury our heads in the sand. We have to be that change. So I want everyone to join the movement. Be the initiator. Share information from these sessions. Give a gift of financial education. Now, this is an unapologetic plug, but you can purchase my book as a start and discuss finances as it relates to dealing with my book discusses finances as it relates to many life transitions. I keep it simple and straight to the point while intertwining shoe analogies and my personal stories. So I just got a note from someone last night who just finished reading my book, and I was almost in tears in reading her text message to me, and how it encouraged her to take the steps that she needed to ensure that her family, her children, and her grandchildren were better financially. And she said to me that she felt like as she was reading the book, she felt like I was sitting in a room with her, talking to her like a girlfriend. I thought that was a fantastic compliment. I didn't know what to do with it. It just made me emotional. But the whole idea is I want, and the other women on this panel, all of us want you all to be better financially. And we're taking time to share insightful information so that you can be informed, knowledgeable, and have a better handle as to where you're going in life and how all of that ties to your finances. So at this point, if there are any questions that you have for me, I'm open for questions.
Okay, Zenelia, thank you so much. Let me just monitor this window here and see if we've got some questions coming in. We just got a number of comments earlier in your presentation about how the women would spend their last 6 weeks if they knew they had 6 weeks. And the consensus from all is really spending time with their family. So that clearly seems to be everyone's priority. Now let's see. And Angie just says, the book sounds great. Thank you, Ms. Harris.
You're very welcome.
Great presentation, Kathy says, and I would agree with that. So Zenelia, thank you so much. And I do love the analogy with the stilettos and the confidence. And I do have to reiterate that if once you get control of your finances, like Zenelia and all these other savvy women have suggested, but once you get that control and understanding and you feel confident about it, you feel confident about other areas of your life as well. I have to say that's kind of the unintended consequence of my learning how to invest in stocks is that now I feel confident in other aspects of my life as well. And that's hard to put a price on, but it's a priceless feeling, I have to say, and it's just permeates every aspect of my life. So I encourage each and every one of you, and as Amelia says, all 7 of us tonight, that's what gets us up in the morning. Wanting to help women, like you, learn to be financially fearless and educate yourselves and empower yourselves. It's just, and I started investing in my 60s, so I'm a lot older than the rest of the speakers on our panel tonight. And I didn't start till I'm 60. So, if I can do it, you all can get started and master this as well.
Yes, it's never too late. And,
exactly.
And that's something that I think is very important for women to understand. It doesn't matter where you are in life, you can start today.
And that's actually something that Kathy's just said a few minutes ago. She said it's never too late. So that's awesome. How can I find like-minded women? Rosemary asks.
Well, you know what? One of the things that I would encourage you is to actually create your own group of women that you that are interested in learning about finances. So there are meetup groups that you may want to look into, meetup groups. But actually ask your friends because you'll be surprised how they feel and what they're open to. So start with the people that are closest to you. I can't remember who said it earlier. It might have been Marsha that said that one of the things that we don't talk about is money, and so start the conversation and see how many of your friends are interested. And again, I would say, you have a couple of the panelists here who have books, and you may want to use that and say, okay, let's get together. We're going to read this book and then have a discussion about the information that you learned from one of the books that you read. And use one of the tips in your daily life. So take a tip from the financial books that you decide to read, whichever one you decide to read, and pull a tip out that you're going to start today, or at the end of the discussion. This one tip is the one thing I'm going to start with in changing my financial future.
Baby steps, right? Just take baby steps, but just get started.
Exactly.
And Linda says, I'm 60 TOO. And I was feeling discouraged about managing my money. I have felt like I have failed and that it was too late. So, Linda, I hope we've given you hope and confidence that it's not too late. It's never too late to get started, as Anelia just said. Oh, here, Michelle is saying, my book club is reading Marsha's book this month. Okay, well, Zanelia's is your next one. Maybe that's a way to get like-minded women. Start a book club about investing.
Exactly. Exactly.
There you go. You've got 3 right here tonight to tap into. And is this being taped? Yes, everything is being taped. We will send that out to you early next week, a video of each of the 7 presentations. But please stay tuned because we have one more. Okay, you're getting lots of kudos, Zanelia. Everyone loves your presentations, so thank you so much. Awesome.
Thank you for having me, Sandy.
Oh, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. All right, so last but not least is Sharon, and I'm thrilled to see everyone is staying on in the attendee mood. So Sharon will not disappoint. Sharon is a Senior Vice President, Senior Portfolio Management Director, Financial Advisor, and founding partner of the Cunningham Group at Morgan Stanley's Wealth Management Division in New York City. Sharon is a seasoned wealth management professional for more than 25 years. She's been recognized throughout her career for her pioneering commitment to improving women's financial acumen and for her dedication to important social and philanthropic efforts. So Sharon, the stage is yours.
Everyone. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. And
Hey, Sharon, we can hear you.
you can hear me? I'm sorry. I thought we were having some technical difficulties, so pardon me. I just wanted to say hello to everyone and thanks Sandy and your team at Chaikin for putting this together. This is a fabulous event. And I've been listening to all of the fine points from the other speakers, and I just want to say how proud I am of all of you who've taken the time and the effort to tune in to hear some of this valuable advice that you're being given. And my hope is that you will continue to use it in pursuing your own financial dreams and aspirations. So before we begin, I just have a housekeeping item, so kindly bear with me as I read the following statement. Attendance at this web conference is through invitation only and intended for U.S. residents domiciled in the states where Morgan Stanley Financial Advisor is registered, and for clients residing in jurisdictions where Morgan Stanley conducts business on a cross-border basis and is not required to be registered or licensed. Before proceeding, it is requested that any individuals or entities not meeting the eligibility requirement for this conference please disconnect at this time. Additionally, the strategies and/or investments discussed may not be suitable for all investors and have been prepared without regard to your unique financial circumstances. So Morgan Stanley and I recommend that you independently evaluate particular investments or strategies and encourage you to seek the advice of your own advisor, as we do not provide legal or tax advice. Investments and services offered through Morgan Stanley Smith Barney LLC, member SIPC. Phew. Well, thank you for bearing with me on that. So as Sandy mentioned, we came together because I subscribe to Chaikin Analytics, their services. And in my own experience, when she told me that she was putting something together to educate women, I really wanted to be a part of it. And thank you again, Sandy, for including me. So in my own experience of serving women clients for over 25 years, I've learned one of the big secrets to women's success. And I believe that is that we are skilled listeners. When you couple this with the fact that we take time to gather useful information, important information, and yes, I did say that women are gatherers, it's not surprising to learn that research shows that we actually make very good financial decisions, important decisions, ones that impact ourselves, our families, and our communities. So today, rather than raising your anxiety levels by reminding you of the very real and scary and depressing statistics about how generationally we're financially unprepared, or how we as women face bigger financial challenges than men in securing our futures because of lower pay and longer life expectancies, I would prefer to give you the tools to successfully impact your financial futures. I believe that is through developing your own fiscal philosophy and good decision making that you will control your destiny. And that's why I call this presentation The Power of the Purse. For all that other stuff, there's the internet. So let's begin. I want to tell you a story. Not long ago, I came across a study, and the study was called Harnessing the Power of the Purse, which was conducted by the Center for Talent and Innovation. And I don't know if some of you are familiar with their work, but they're a private sector consortium, and they focus on helping organizations leverage their talent across divides of gender, generation, geography, and culture. So pretty valuable work. The study focused on female investors and global opportunities for growth. And what they found was illuminating. Women now control 11%, 11.2 trillion of assets in the U.S., or 39% of our nation's wealth. Female wealth, which I think is very exciting, is self-created and growing, yet many are still underserved by our financial community. And that's concerning because it's leaving their questions unanswered. And the implications for that is that women may not be getting the proper information that they need to make educated financial decisions on how to grow their wealth for the future. And so at Morgan Stanley, my team, this got us thinking. I think we'd all agree that decisions around money can be very powerful and even life-changing. My team and I believe that engaged and financially fluent women can leverage their wealth in really powerful ways. And they do this not only for themselves, but it's been proven that they reach out and take care of their families and also their communities. And so everyone is brought up together. So it's through our Power of the Purse campaign, we are seeing a bunch of campaigns in presidential years, we are aiming to deliver the tools to help women everywhere unleash the power. So how are we doing that? Well, we chose to use the PURSE acronym to define and remind women of the important concepts that help to address their finances. And just like a purse, these are principles that we believe you should never be without. The P is to define your purpose. And tonight we'll talk about goal setting and how important it is to have a plan. The U is to utilize time wisely. And often people think they need a great deal of money to begin investing. But what they don't recognize is that it's the amount of time you have to let that money grow for you that's most important. The R is for maximizing your resources and managing your risks. And here we're going to address some important concepts around managing your credit score, taking advantage of tax advantage investing, and diversifying your portfolio to manage market risk. The S is a reminder to be selective. Knowing the right questions to ask in choosing an advisor can make all the difference in getting to the right person and building a good relationship to help you address your finances. E is a reminder to expand your horizons. And this involves being open to new ideas, particularly those ideas that can help grow your wealth. It can be a shift in conventional wisdom in the areas of financial planning or market philosophy, or a change in mindset, like what we're seeing in the embracing of sustainable impact investing. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So the first step in creating an effective financial strategy is the P, defining your goals, defining your purpose. And you heard some of the other speakers talk about this. This step is about setting and prioritizing your goals. Ask yourself, what are my financial goals and objectives? Is it to buy a house, educate my children, retire comfortably? What are you looking to accomplish? How much money will you need, and when are you going to need it? Those are the key first steps. Now, when we talk about defining your goals and purpose, what I find is people often know what they want to accomplish, but sometimes they don't dig deep enough to uncover their why. For example, why is owning a home important to you? Your why should be personal to you and a reflection of your experiences, your interests, and the things that you value. By understanding your purpose or your why, you will be authentically motivated to stay disciplined in your decision making and on track to accomplishing your financial goals. Now, moving on to using your time wisely. What you save today matters for tomorrow. That is so important that I'm going to say it again. What you save today matters for tomorrow. But where do you begin? Well, first let's cover some standard rules of thumb. Some of these you've actually heard in some of the presentations earlier this evening. So, many of you may have heard the saying, pay yourself first. How many of you actually do it? That would be interesting to know, Sandy. We suggest saving at least 10% of your monthly take-home income. That's your monthly income after taxes, before you consider any other discretionary spending. So before you get out there and start purchasing those stilettos Zanelia talked about, we want to ensure that you've first taken care of business and put money aside for your financial goals. Also, we want to suggest that you have a method to track your expenses. We don't put people on budgets, but we do encourage them to create a system so that they can track where their money is going. Is it going to the areas that are important to you, or are you finding that you're spending too much in a particular area and it's keeping you from the important things that you want in life? So once you have a method to track your expenses and you tally your fixed expenses, what I call your necessity expenses, you want to set aside at least 3 to 6 months worth of cash in a reserve for opportunities or for emergencies that may arise. And you heard Tina talk about that earlier as well. Now, using your time wisely. Once you've established that cash reserve that we talked about, it's appropriate to start focusing on investing for the longer term. And here, time can be your friend. So let's consider the powerful impact of compounding interest. As many of you are aware, when you compound interest, the interest that you earn is added to the original principal that you deposited, which is then positioned to earn more interest as well. Doing this allows your money to grow quickly. As you can see in this example, $1,000 invested at 5% interest per year will grow to $1,273 when the interest is allowed to compound. As you can also see, the impact can be significant and especially impressive when you're investing larger dollar amounts. So just imagine adding a 0 or 2 to each of these numbers. Now, when compounding returns are impactful and dramatic, it's also a good idea to start saving early. And here's why. So we put together an illustration here. Take a look at this example. Olivia and Emily both want to retire at age 60. Olivia, at age 25, begins investing $2,000 a year, while Emily waits until age 40 and then begins investing $4,000 per year until she's 60. So at retirement, Olivia has invested a total of $70,000, And her portfolio, compounding at 7.5 rate of return, is valued at $335,000. In contrast, Emily has invested of $80,000, and her portfolio, compounding at that same rate of return, has grown to $190,000. So here, as you can see, Olivia's total investment is $10,000 less than Emily's. But because she started 15 years earlier, she's accumulated approximately 75% more wealth than Emily. So ask yourself, who would you rather be, Olivia or Emily? I think I know the answer to that. The next step in creating an effective financial strategy is the R's. Maximizing your resources and managing your risks. So how do you begin to do this? We're going to cover 3 important ways. The first is to protect your credit score. The second is to take full advantage of tax-preferred savings plans. And last but not least, diversify your investments. So Tina spoke of this earlier, and she made the point that you absolutely need to know what your credit score is and how to keep it high. So your credit scores helps financial institutions determine how much risk is associated with them lending you money, and based upon how likely you are to repay that debt. Now, the scores generally range from 300 to 850. And the higher your credit score, the easier it will be for you to qualify for credit and receive favorable rates. So understanding how to protect your credit score is going to help you qualify for the best interest rates, which can significantly affect your borrowing expenses over time. Now, here are some things you can do to protect and improve your score. As Tina mentioned, check your scores regularly to ensure that the information is correct. If it's not, work with the credit reporting agencies to get the information corrected. The second way is to pay your bills on time. Now, we're all very busy, and sometimes you can find that you may have missed the bill that came in. What we suggest is that you consider setting up automatic payments for the minimum amount each month so that you never have a late payment. And if you choose to pay a little bit more in a given month, you could still do that. You can do that as well. But at least you know that that minimum payment will always be received on time. Next, keep your credit utilization low. And keep an eye on how much debt you have as a whole. So strive to keep your balances below 30% of all total available credit. And last, we want you to think before just closing an account. One mistake I see people make all the time is they'll pay off a credit account and they close the account thinking that it looks good to creditors. But this can actually work against you. Lenders want to see a minimum number of open credit accounts to see that you're properly managing your finances and the responsibility that comes with that. And they would rather see an account with no balance than a closed account. So think before you act. Moving on, another way to maximize your resources, is to take advantage of tax-preferred plans. Now here we're going to outline 2 main types. The first one is where you make pre-tax contributions. You take a tax deduction, and you pay taxes later when you'll withdraw the funds. These accounts are traditional IRAs, 401ks, and if you're self-employed, SEP IRAs. The second type is where you contribute after-tax dollars. And you may do this into a Roth IRA, a Roth 401k, a 529 plan. And then when you withdraw the funds, you withdraw them tax-free. Now, how do you make the determination as to which to do? Well, the decision regarding the type of account to use is typically based on your current tax bracket and what you deem to anticipate your tax bracket to be in the future. at the time that you would withdraw the money. So for example, if you're a high wage earner and you're subject to high federal and state taxes, it may be best to utilize the first strategy and contribute to the traditional IRA, 401k, or SEP IRA. Your objective there is to take the tax deduction now and pay less taxes today and defer taxation into the future, when ideally you might be in a lower tax bracket. However, if you find that today you are a more modest wage earner and in a lower tax bracket, it might make sense for you to elect to contribute to a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k on an after-tax basis. And the advantage to that is that you pay no taxes when you withdraw the funds at a later date, when you could find yourself in a higher tax bracket. So when considering all of this, it may be beneficial to create different tax preference account buckets, as this may help you manage your tax liability into the future. Sticking with maximizing your resources, we want to spend a moment talking to you about how to capture income tax savings for yourself. So here's an example. Assume you have a current salary of $120,000. You're presented with the opportunity to invest some of that money and contribute into a retirement plan. You begin contributing 5% of your income, or $500 a month, to the 401k. Your taxable pay is reduced, as you can see here, from $10,000 to $9,500. And so is your monthly federal income tax, from $2,500 to $2,375. The $125 a month in tax savings adds up to roughly $1,500 a year, which is now being redirected toward meeting your long-term goals in your retirement account. So although you're shifting $6,000 a year into your 401k, if you include the tax savings of $1,500, the impact to your present lifestyle is just $4,500, or $375 a month. So capturing these tax dollars and making them work for you can be financially rewarding over time. And that's what we mean about maximizing your resources. Lastly, many corporations offer retirement plans where they'll match your contribution. And we want you to think of this as free money. So companies that sponsor a 401k plan will sometimes match your contributions up to a certain percentage. And this is a powerful feature of a 401k that can dramatically help you build your retirement savings over time. So let's look back at our previous example again and say a company will match 100% of your contribution of up to 4%. Now there's usually a vesting schedule tied to corporate contributions, and in this case we assumed it was a 3-year period before the money is actually yours. You are always 100% immediately vested in your personal contributions to the plan. Now back to our previous example. If you put away $6,000, which was really $4,500 out of pocket because you captured the $1,500 that would have gone to taxes, your annual investment with a company match amounts to $10,800. Now this is just for 1 year. So this is before accounting for any potential growth or investment returns. So if you have these benefits, please make sure that you're taking advantage of them and having free money work for you. Now moving on, while it's important to maximize your resources, it's equally important to manage your risks. When you're investing money, you'll have choices of how you want your money. Now, as financial professionals, we define risk in many ways. But typically, when you ask investors to define risk, Usually they define it as a loss of principal. However, by keeping funds in low risk, low return money markets, as you can see here, you can actually lose purchasing power over time when the cost of goods and services increase every year at a faster rate than what you're able to earn on your money. And that's something you have to think about, particularly as you go through life and as those years add up. So this slide shows the relationship between risk and return for different types of securities. We start on the left with the money market, which offer low risk and low returns, while bonds, which I refer to as IOUs, because that's essentially what a bond is, you're lending your money to some entity, a corporation, a municipality, or the U.S. Treasury, and they're promising to pay you back that principal at a certain date and give you a rate of return on your money. It's like an IOU. Now, those bonds offer a higher return than money markets, and they also have a slightly higher degree of risk. Now, stocks represent ownership of a company. And here we have two types, the large company stocks and small company stocks. Now, stocks offer the highest potential return, but they also offer a high degree of risk with no assurance that you'll receive your principal back. So it's important to align your investment time horizon with your appetite for risk. For example, if you're looking to buy a home in the next year, it's probably unlikely that you want your down payment subject to market swings. And conversely, if your retirement is many years away, you're probably more likely to be open to investing for growth by weighting your portfolio towards stocks than keeping it in a low interest rate money market. Understanding this relationship between risk and return can help you design an asset allocation strategy that's reflective of your financial goals and your risk tolerance. Now, up to now, in helping describe how to manage risks, we've been talking in general terms about stocks, bonds, and cash. But Wall Street rarely makes anything that simple. So I don't want you to be scared by this slide. I'll explain it in a minute. And while it's true that risks can be mitigated through a blending of asset classes, which is a combination of the stocks, bonds, and cash we spoke of, true diversification can also be achieved within each of those asset classes. For example, in this chart, each color represents a different subset of investments. So orange is U.S. stocks, lime green international stocks, and red emerging markets. And if you look back over the last 10 years, each asset class, each asset color is ranked by performance in each year. So at the top is your best performing asset class, and at the bottom is your worst performing asset class for any given year. Now, what you may observe here is that there's never one asset class that's consistently at the top. There's never one color that dominates every year. At the same time, you may also see that there are shifts that happen. And in fact, an asset class that had outperformed in some years, like emerging markets, subsequently has cycles. And those same assets can be found to be those low-ranking returns in the future. And you can see that with the master limited partnerships as well. So it's important here to recognize that, because sometimes people will look to chase past performance. And oftentimes past performance may not be what you will see in the coming years because you're in one of these transitions. But all of this is really important to consider when you're trying to manage your risk while investing. Now, moving on, I want to talk to you about being selective. An S in the purse is a reminder of that. Now, how do you pick a financial advisor that's right for you? First, let me say, if you're comfortable doing this on your own and you have an interest, you absolutely can do it. There's no magic to what we do. It's just the time and commitment that we as advisors make to our craft. But if you don't have the time or the interest, I strongly encourage you to seek out professional help. And how do you pick a financial advisor that's right for you? Well, it's important to approach this with the intention of pursuing a long-term relationship, just like a marriage. Certainly, you want to consider a financial advisor's experience, qualifications, reputation. You may even ask to speak with that advisor's current clients. I've been asked that and been willing to do that each and every time. You want to take time to discuss compensation and any cost structure. That should all be discussed and put clearly out on the table. And you should evaluate all these factors, and especially important is finding someone that you trust, someone that's easy to communicate with and who takes the time to explain ideas and concepts in a way that's easy to understand. So financial goals are very personal, and you should seek someone out who you feel respects your values. And speaking of values, the E in purse is about expanding your horizons. And that brings us to talk about social impact investing. So one of the new ways that you can align your investment strategy with your values is through investing with impact. Now, some of you might be familiar with that term, but for those who are not, let me say the way that we define investing with impact is investing your money not only to generate favorable returns, but also to bring about positive social and environmental change. And today, companies are reporting on how effective they are in their operations on these social, environmental, and governance metrics, just as they report on traditional financial metrics. And we encourage those of you who have an interest to check it out, because social impact investing allows investors to align their personal values with their financial goals in doing well by doing good. And now that we've shared these tools with you to lever your power of your purse, it's up to you to determine how you're going to use them. We genuinely hope you'll use them to become even more financially fearless, as Sandy has taught, and to benefit you, your families, and your communities, and to positively impact the world. So thank you all for taking the time this evening, and thank you, Sandy, and your team again for the wonderful work that you do. I'm going to say goodnight, and I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well, Sharon, don't say goodnight yet, because we've got some questions for you. And thank you so much. You were certainly last but not least. So, thank you for presenting such a engaging presentation at this late hour. But that was
pleasure.
Great. So we're getting lots of wonderful kudos here. I have to read one in particular from Brian, and I love that Brian is on and sending us a great message. He says, "So impressed by all of you brilliant women. I am recording this for my 13-year-old daughter so she can get a head start on her saving and her investments. Looking forward to Ms. Cunningham. I read an article about her in a recent magazine." So that's just great.
How nice. That is
great.
Yeah,
how lovely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it is fantastic. Thank you, Brian. We're thrilled that you're on. And it is exciting to see all these women names. When I give presentations to our community, it's usually 95% men and about 5% women. So it's exciting to see all these women engaged and logging on and asking questions, and it's really very invigorating. Okay, so let's see. We've got a couple of questions for you, Sharon. Let me just scroll down to them here. What does pay yourself first mean? Paula is asking.
So pay yourself first means before you pay your bills to others, that you sit down and be sure that you capture some money toward your savings and make sure that you're paying yourself the way you would sit down and pay your electric bill or your rent, that you're putting money aside for your future.
Okay. And Kelly is saying always put 7% in 401k and then have employer matching.
Terrific. That's exactly what you want to do. Employer matches are critical to capturing that for yourselves and to helping your retirement plan really grow over time. So
I'll
that's
tell you,
fantastic.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And I'll tell you a quick story. I started investing in a 401k plan when I was a secretary at Elizabeth Arden back in the 70s, 1970s, my first job. And they matched it with Eli Lilly stock because they were owned by Eli Lilly at the time. And that Eli Lilly, I was there for 7 years, and as my career grew there, and so did my 401k plan, that built up a really nice nest egg thanks to the Lilly stock that they matched it with, that I then used to put down the down payment on a co-op that I bought in the city.
Terrific.
So that's how it compounds. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
It absolutely does. And it's, if you think about it, it's 100% return on your investment. Because if they're matching you dollar for dollar, that is 100% return on your money with no risk.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
And that's very hard to come by, Sandy, as you and I both know.
I know.
Right? So if you
Right.
think about that, you know, there's not a lot of places where you can get 100% return on your money and have no risk. But just taking that dollar or that $100 or that $1,000 and putting into a corporate plan in which people are eligible for that match gives them considerable leverage without any risk.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, as I would say. Okay, so Jennifer is asking, can income from investments be put into a Roth IRA?
Can income from investments be put into a Roth IRA? You need to have, what you need to have is income. Income that is shown in order to have any money go to a Roth IRA. So it depends where the income is coming from, but if it's ordinary income, the answer is yes.
Okay, great. And let's see, Catherine is saying, why are you talking about a 5% annual interest when U.S. interest rates have only been increased to 0.25% by the Fed at the end of December?
I'm sorry, Sandy, can you say it again?
The question is, why are you, what do you mean by a 5% annual interest rate when the U.S. interest rates have only been increased to 0.25% by the Fed at the end of December?
So the 5% interest rate that we are showing is for illustrative purposes only, and it would be reflective of a portfolio that would include investable assets such as stocks and bonds.
Got it. Okay, that should answer Catherine's question then. Kathy says, I think you should put max and caps amount in 401k plan. I would certainly agree with that, and I'm sure all the other speakers would too.
Happy to do it.
Okay, and then let's see, there's a few more, Sharon. I've often heard the guidance of, just jumped. Wait one sec. Wait, here's another one. What should be my priority now as I am 20-something young professional? 1, socking away all extra money in my Roth IRA. My company doesn't have a matching program at 401k plan. Or 2, putting extra money toward attacking debts, student and car loans. Those loans are basically equal to my salary. Ugh. Thanks for the webinar.
Well, you're very welcome. My pleasure. And what I would say is that whenever there are two sides of the balance sheet, right? So you have to manage debt as well as look to put money away for your future and grow your money. And sometimes those are choices and very personal to that individual. So what I would encourage her to do is to sit down and review that information with a professional and have those conversations, because it's really important that she feels confident in the direction that she's going in and that it makes sense to her to have the resources and the information to know that she's making a good decision.
Okay, great. There was one more here that just skipped out of my, here it is. Yeah, Courtney. I've often heard the guidance of contributing 10% to savings after tax. Is that after 401k plan contribution, which is pre-tax, or does 401k contribution count in that 10%?
I'm sorry, Sandy, say it again?
Sure. I've often heard the guidance of contributing 10% to savings after tax. Is that after 401k contribution, which is pre-tax, or does 401k contribution count in that 10%?
The 401k contribution would count as part of that rule of thumb, if you will. So if that's what the person is referring to, that rule of thumb where we say 10% of your savings, it can absolutely include money that you're putting away towards your 401k in that calculation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
I think that gets through all your questions. Let me just make sure I got them all. I think I did. Okay, fantastic.
Great.
Sharon, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Sandy, and thank you. And thank everyone for hanging in to this great presentation that you put together. And thank you to the other participants and other speakers. I hope we gave you some real food for thought.
Well, I think I'm inspired. I'm certainly inspired by all of you savvy speakers, and I know the audience, just by the nature of their questions and comments, has been really equally impressed. So what a great, fantastic evening, fantastic event. And I just want to key off of some of the questions here about how do we get into an investment group, how do we find like-minded women who are interested in investing. Let me throw the idea out for us all to think about, respond to. I mean, what if we at Chaikin organize something for women around maybe an online investor forum, and maybe we have guest speakers come in and have it open for Q&A, so there's a dialogue and ability to ask questions and be part of the conversation. You know, we could address different topics as they relate to women in finance, like many of the speakers that have spoken tonight. So, if any of you in the audience that think that would be a good idea, if you don't mind just chatting that into your question box, good idea. And then and we'll take it back. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, you like that. Okay. All right, speakers, ladies, we've got a call to action here. Yeah, we got a lot of interest in that. Fantastic. Okay, well, let's keep this enthusiasm going, and we'll get back to you with details on our next steps and next ideas. But this is only the beginning. So you all are pioneers. All of you fabulous women and men attendees are fantastic audience, great pioneers, and pat yourselves on the back for taking care of your finances and learning to be more financially fearless so that you can, empower yourself with knowledge and information. Thank you all, and good night.